Hey guys, what is up? I hope everyone's having a great day. Okay, so I apologize. I'm a little late getting these done, but because they are so long, I had to wait for me to have the time to sit down and actually do them. So today, we're looking at volume 1 of Jennifer Howell's Deposition. Man, oh man. Okay, so I have not read this. I just saw, holy crap. It's a big one. I've heard some things about it, so I wanted my own reaction along with you. I wanted you to hear my own reaction when reading this deposition because we only saw this much compared to this much. We only saw a little bit. So let's get right into it because it is a long one. All right, so here it is. Once again, everything is in the description box. The link to Depp Dive is there for you. All right. Look where they hid this. Also present, Alex Sussman. So this is just all like who's there on behalf of defendant, on behalf of Art of Elysium. Also present. And right down here, Amber Heard, defendant. Now, she was also present for Christian Carinos. And why would she be present? Why would she be present? Not only to sit there and say, go ahead, say it, say it, go ahead. And not only that, she can now tailor her evidence to what these people said. I know Andrea said that, sorry, I blanked for a second there. Andrea Burkhardt said that it's her right. She has every right to sit in there. But much like the UK case where she sat there and she watched everybody say what they had to say before she got on the stand, so she could tailor her answers. There were so many inconsistencies, so many goddamn stories shifting, even on the stand. They shifted to whatever wind blew from whatever someone else said. Nope. So let's get into it. All right. So we got all this. These are just things that are attached. Okay, will counsel please introduce yourselves and state whom you represent? Elaine Bredehoff. Good afternoon. My name is Elaine Bredehoff and I represent Amber Heard. Miss Vasquez. Good afternoon. Camille Vasquez on behalf of Mr. Depp. Mr. Calnan. Stephanie Calnan. Miss Bredehoff. Yeah, we couldn't hear that person. Miss Calnan. I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? Reporter. Barely. And Elaine's like, not very well. Okay, so Elaine's like, yeah, we can hear you now. Okay, so Miss Calnan. Okay, Stephanie Calnan on behalf of Mr. Depp, Miss Bredehoff. All right, and we've got a whole bunch more on behalf of Mr. Depp. Can we get their appearance too, please? Mr. Moniz, yes, good morning. Samuel Moniz, Brown Rudnick, also for Mr. Depp. Camille Vasquez, Mr. Chu is also present, and I will note for the record that Miss Amber Heard is also present. So Elaine was like, can we have everyone on Mr. Depp's team please stand up? And Camille's like, bitch, how about your own fucking client? Anyway, Elaine, do we have any others, Camille? There just seems to be so many people on this. Camille, 3 people is a lot, I guess. Yes, Elaine, that's it. Elaine, okay. And then I think Mr. Sphere, I think we need to note your presence as well. Mr. Sphere, I will do that. Richard Sphere, Mayor Brown for the witness. Kat, do you want to introduce yourself? Miss Messenger, yeah, this is Kathleen Messenger on behalf of the witness as well. So then they swore over the witnesses. Jen Howell being factually sworn, blah, blah, blah. Will you state your name? I will block that out just in case I don't like, even though it's there, I don't like it. I'm going to block that out for you guys. Miss Howell, you went in and out a little bit. I think it was just a video connection. Could you repeat that? She just said she was the CEO of Art of Elysium. Question, okay, and are you here under subpoena? Is that correct? Answer, yes. Question, okay, and have you provided a declaration on behalf of Mr. Depp? Depp in connection with the UK proceedings and in this litigation, correct? Jennifer, yes. Question, and have you also provided a witness statement in support of Mr. Depp's appeal in the UK proceedings? Is that correct? Jennifer, yes. Elaine, okay, and for the record, I'm requesting the court to declare this witness as adverse pursuant to Rule 8.01 to 401 and Rule 2:607 to the Rule of the Evidence, thus permitting me to ask questions in a cross-examination manner by Ms. Bredehoff. Question, have you ever had your deposition taken before? Jen, no. Question, okay. Jen, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Question, you occasionally are very... Jen, you're coming in and out for some reason. You're coming in and out for some reason. I can hear everybody else, but you keep coming in and out to me. I think it's selective hearing, Jen. I don't blame you. Elaine, for me, it's Miss Howell that's going in and out. Is everyone seeing the same thing I am, or are they having issues with my connection? Then there was an AV technician. This is Alex, the tech speaking. Your voice sounds strong, Elaine. Miss Vasquez. So Elaine, Miss Howell, I believe there might be some connection issue on your end. Jen, it's showing I have full bars. Can you hear me now? Elaine, yes. Occasionally you freeze while you're talking. Elaine, I wish you would freeze when talking. Jen, sorry, it shows full bars where I am, so I'm not sure why that would be happening. Elaine, okay, let me ask the question again because I'm not sure I got the answer. Have you had your deposition taken before? Jen, no. Elaine, now you understand that you are testifying both in your individual capacity and on behalf of the Art of Elysium, correct? Jen, I just heard that today. I actually thought it was two separate things, but that's fine. Elaine, okay. And then the reporter clarified for the record. So Jen said, I'm going to try to, it shows full bars. I'm just going to try to move through. I'm in my parents' home, so let me just try. I attempted it before and it seems everything worked. Is this better by any chance? Can you hear me? Elaine, I can. We can hear you and you haven't frozen. Jen, okay, let's try it back here. I'm sorry. I'm moving to a bedroom in the back of their house, so I apologize. So the reporter just read back the last answer just because I missed that part of what you said. So the reporter read the record as follows. Question, now you understand that you are testifying both in your individual capacity and on behalf of the Art of Elysium, correct? Answer, I just heard that today. I actually thought it was two separate things, but that's fine. Jen said, yep, that's what I said. Elaine, okay. Jen, there were just two separate subpoenas, one to me personally and one to the charity. So Elaine, right. And to make this process go a little more quickly in combining these depositions, just let me know if you do not have personal knowledge about something that we're testifying to and you're testifying on behalf of the Art of Elysium because you have talked to employees or learned some information in connection with Art of Elysium, you just let me know that, okay? Jen's like, okay. Elaine, great. I'm going to be asking you a series of questions. If at any time you do not understand my question, let me know and I will rephrase it. If you respond, I will assume you understood that question. Is it fair? Jen said yes. Question. And I would ask that you please be sure to answer everything verbally as opposed to a shake or nod of the head or a uh-huh, because we have a court reporter who needs to be transcribing everything, okay? Jen, I understand. The videographer, can I interrupt for 1 second? I'm sorry. I'm only getting her from her chin up. Jen, sorry, because whenever I moved, the videographer, yes, thanks, sorry. Elaine, okay, no problem. So Elaine goes on. So did you review any documents in preparation for this deposition? Jen, the ones that I went over with my attorney, what? Day before yesterday, I believe. Richard? Question, which documents were those? Jen, the ones I had provided that I believed were providing to everyone with my understanding. You know what? I'm just going to make this a little bigger for you guys because I just noticed it's really hard to read. There we go. Okay. And Elaine said, would it be approximately 99 pages? Jen, I cannot say off the top of my head, but that's what I had given them, so I'm not sure. Question. All right. Is there anything you reviewed other than the documents you produced in discovery to both sides? Jen, no. Elaine, okay. Did you speak with anyone other than your counsel in preparation for your deposition today? Answer, no. Question. Did you interview any other people to be able to respond on behalf of the Art of Elysium? Answer, no. I did not know we were doing the response on behalf of the Art of the Elysium. I have obviously spoken to my employees about this since we got subpoenaed, but I did not sit down and interview anyone. No. Question. Okay, now you claim that the reason you became involved in this case is that you watched Whitney Heard provide testimony in the UK that mentioned you, and you became upset and you reached out to Christy Dombrowski. Is that correct? Camille. Objection. Lack of foundation. Jen Howell. I'm occasionally going to make objection. Ms. Howell, sorry, this is still Camille. Ms. Howell, I'm occasionally going to make objections on behalf of Mr. Depp. Jen said, okay. Camille, and I assume your counsel may also be making objections, so if you would just give me about 2 seconds to state my objection on the record, it might make the court reporter's job just a little bit easier. And also, I would just note that I hear terrible background echo noise, so if everyone could please mute their line so that's not speaking, that would be, I'm sure, greatly appreciated. Elaine goes on. Question. Do you remember the question? Jen, yes. I can walk you through exactly how I came to be aware of the case and everything else. I saw Google alerts with the Art of Elysium. I was aware something was going on. I had believed that this was put to rest years ago because my understanding from Whitney was that they had signed an NDA. Amber had dropped all the charges against Johnny and had been paid her divorce settlement. And to the best of my knowledge, this thing was put to rest years ago. I got contacted the last week of July by a neighbor who is a friend of mine, and lived in the same apartment building with me for approximately 20 years. I would say to the best of my ability, and I had shared with her at the time, Whitney was living with me, a lot of what Whitney shared with me because I was not sure what to do with the information at that time. She called me sometimes last week of July, probably 20th, I would say. That sounds about right when it comes to her statement that she made. Sometimes that week she said, "Are you watching what's going on with this case?" And I said, "No." At that point, she kind of filled me in. And she's like, everything that you said was said. It's complete opposite. Everything that Whitney shared with you, this is crazy. I started to look at it. And whenever I texted Christy, I met Christy through Tim Headington and texted her not thinking I was going to say anything. I was just going to say, I'm sorry. I'm aware of what's going on and I have a stepbrother who I consider my brother. I cannot imagine what you were going through. Something to that effect. And I think I asked if I could call or something just to express my apologies for what their family must be going through. I am not sure if at that point Whitney had gotten on the stand yet. When Whitney got on the stand is when I felt compelled that I had to come forward because what she said on the stand was in dire contrast to what she told me when she came to stay with me and that what she shared with me while she lived with me. Elaine. Okay, there's 2 things I need to do here. The first is I'm going to move to strike the vast majority of that as non-responsive and hearsay, double hearsay, and triple hearsay. But that second part is I'm going to ask the court reporter, Ms. Howell, went in and out at the beginning, and I didn't get all of the beginning of her. But did you get the full answer? Reporter, yes. Elaine, can you read back the first half? I don't want you to have read the whole thing. Reporter, 1 moment. Jen, let me try to get this other position and see if it helps. I'm just grabbing a chair. I'm trying to move where it sounds better. If this is better, since I keep coming in and out, is this better? I'm just trying to get the best position for you, Elaine. Elaine, I mean, this seems okay. It just went in and out at the beginning of your answer. And so I wanted to make sure we had all the full record of what was said. Jen, I'm just grabbing a chair. I'm going to try and right here and see if this helps. Reporter, and just let me know when you want me to start the read back. Elaine, we should probably wait for the witness. Reporter, sure. Camille, Madam Court Reporter, I believe it may have been your feedback that I was hearing. So if you could mute your line, that would be helpful while the witness is being examined. The reporter, sure, no problem. And if you see me give a wave sign, it's because it's hard for me to get off my machine and unmute. So if anyone sees me waving, can you please stop? Please, because that means I didn't hear something and I need it repeated. Camille, understood. So the reporter just read back. We're not going to go through any of that again. Okay, Elaine. So it would be accurate to say, Miss Howell, that you did not quite watch the end quote any of Whitney's testimony. Is that correct? Jen, I read what was in the transcripts when it came up, is how I saw. Elaine, right. But let me ask you the question again. It would be correct to say that you did not, quote, watch, end of quote, Whitney's testimony. Is that correct? What? Camille, objection, vague and ambiguous as to watch, assumes facts, not in evidence. We could not watch the UK trial. Goddamn shame, but we could not watch it. Jen said, oh no, I was unaware if there was a video. I have no idea. Elaine goes on, okay, so it would be inaccurate to say you, quote, watched, end of quote, Whitney's testimony. Is that correct? Camille, objection, vague and ambiguous, asked and answered, and lack of foundation. Jen, do I continue? I don't know what to do there. Elaine, yes. Answer, if there is any objection, okay, I read the transcript, so that is what I did. I didn't know if you would. I did not see a video, and I was not in the court, no. Question, who gave you the transcript of Whitney's testimony? Jen, they were online at some. I mean, all of the daily transcripts were going up. Question, now I'm going to ask you, well, before I go to that, is it your recollection that you were named in Whitney's testimony? Answer, she said she went to stay on her boss's floor or couch, and that is me. So that is where I'm saying she brought me up on the stand. Elaine, was your name ever mentioned in that trial? Oh my God. It doesn't matter. That's her boss. Answer, no, but she was 100% referring to me. Question, well, do you know that for sure? Answer, I know that for a fact. Question, how many bosses has Whitney had? Jen, at the time, me, nobody else. Question, and was there another job that Whitney had in the same time period? Jen, she started working for me in January of 2015 and was employed. She started another job in November of 2015, was still doing part-time work with me. But she lived with me from May 2015 until April 2016. And the incident that she was talking about that she said whatever she said, that's again, it was definitely me. No two ways about it. Mr. Sphere. Hey, Jen, this is Rich. Just answer the questions that are put to you. Ooh. Jen, okay. Mr. Sphere, Elaine, will you ask the very good question? Mr. Sphere, Elaine will ask you very good questions. Just listen to her questions and answer them, okay? Elaine. So let me just go back. Now that you've indicated that Whitney lived with you from January 2015 to, Jen, no. Elaine, pardon me, I'm sorry, May 2015 to April 2016. Are you absolutely certain about those dates? Camille, objection, argumentative. Jen, I am certain, yes. She came and went at different periods, but all of her stuff moved out of my house April 2016. Elaine, and I'm sorry, did you say that you were 100% certain of that? Camille, objection, asked and answered, argumentative. Elaine, Miss Howell, could you answer any question? Jen, yeah, she did go back to Amber and Johnny's at different points, but she was still living with me during that time. Elaine, the question I asked because you were talking at the same time Miss Vasquez was giving an objection was I believe that you said you were 100% certain of those dates. Is that correct? Jen, yes. Camille, same objection. Miss Howell, I'm sorry. It would just help if you wait 2 seconds before answering Miss Bredehoff's questions. Jen, okay. Camille, just so that the court reporter can note my objections, note the full question, and note your answer. Jen's like, all right. Elaine, now, did you try to contact Whitney before you reached out to Christy Kombrowski? Jen, I did not. Question, why not? Jen, because she was lying under oath. Elaine, any other reason? Do you need any other reason? Jen's like, no. Elaine, if you thought that Whitney was lying under oath, then wouldn't you have felt at least an obligation to reach out? Oh God, I lost myself. Wouldn't you have an obligation to reach out to her and say, wait, did I misunderstand this? Or why did you say this? Or do you remember that you said this before? You didn't feel any obligation to do that? Jen, no. Camille, objection, compound, lack of foundation, it's argumentative. Elaine, now that we're at least 3 periods of time that the Art of Elysium closed down because of finances during the time that Whitney was working there, is that correct? Jen, no. Camille, objection, lack of foundation. Miss Howell, Jen's like, I'm sorry. Camille, just please let me state my objections on the record before you answer. Thank you, and I assume that your counsel may also have some objections. So, lack of foundation. Jen, no, that's not true. Elaine, okay, when did the Art of Elysium close down for financial reasons? Answer, Camille, objection, assumes facts, not an evidence, lack of foundation. Jen, the Art of Elysium has never closed down in 24 years. We've had layoffs. Elaine, did you have layoffs? Did you have any layoffs of Whitney Heard? Answer, 100%. Question, okay, how many times? Jen, 1. Elaine, and when was that? Jen, I don't have a date in front of me. I can pull it up from the charity's records, but I can't. It was definitely in 2015. Don't know the month exactly. Elaine, all right. Do you recall how long the layoff was of Whitney Heard in 2015 from the Art of Elysium? Jen, I do not. I think that different employees had different layoff times. We always kept some staff on any time we've ever had to do layoffs. Elaine, now that you said you reached out to Christy Dombrowski because you said that you have a stepbrother and that you just wanted to apologize and say this wasn't accurate, is that correct? And you felt badly for Christy because you didn't want something like that to happen to your stepbrother, like was happening to Johnny Depp? Is that essentially your motivation? Answer, yes. Camille, objection. Witness, I'm sorry, Camille, I'll wait. Camille, okay, thank you. Objection, compound, misstates the witness testimony, lack of foundation. Elaine, can you answer now? Jen, yes. Elaine, now you've said repeatedly in the press that you have been making this statement to help Whitney. Would you agree that you made that statement? Jen, I still am. Camille, objection. Assumes facts, not an evidence, vague and ambiguous, compound, lack of foundation. Jen, yes, I stand by that today. I never spoken to press, so not impressed. So sorry about that, but I stand by the statement today. Elaine, how is anything you have said helped Whitney? Camille, objection, vague, ambiguous, lack of foundation. Jen, how is Camille, argumentative? Jen, I'm hoping she will not take the stand again and further perjure herself. Elaine, is that the sole reason you think you're helping Whitney by coming forward with your statement? Camille, objection, vague, ambiguous, compound, lack of foundation. Jen, yes. Elaine, okay, now that you said you believe Whitney was going to be charged by the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation with perjury and other crimes, where did you come up with that? Camille, objection, lack of foundation, vague and ambiguous compound. Jen, I'm not sure. Are you talking about the letter I wrote her? I'm not sure where you're coming up with that. Elaine, do you recall making that statement? Jen, I might. Camille, objection, assumes facts, not an evidence, lack of... we had to hold on for 1 second. They just wanted to, okay, what, Mr. Sphere, hold on 1 second, just stop. Jen, take 3 or 4 seconds after the question to listen to the question and allow the objection to be made. Honestly, 3 or 4 seconds. That way the court reporter can get down what she needs to get down, okay? Just give a few seconds. Jen said, okay. So we were finishing the objection. Camille, I think it was lack of foundation. Can I have the question read back? So the question was, do you recall making the statement? Okay, lack of foundation. So she said, yes, lack of foundation and assumes facts, not an evidence. Jen, I do not recall making that statement. Elaine, do you recall anyone telling you that Whitney was going to be charged with perjury or other crimes? Jen, no. Elaine, do you recall anyone telling you that Whitney was going to be arrested when the plane wheels touched down in Los Angeles for perjury? Jen, no. Question, did you tell anyone that someone told you this? Jen, no. Elaine, are you sure? Jen, I'm sure. I never said that. When the plane wheels touched down? No. Question, have you had any legal training? Jen, no. Camille, objection, lack of foundation, relevance, lack of foundation. Elaine, Camille, just to make things go a little bit faster, relevance is not an objection that needs to be made in depositions. That's one you preserve. Ugh. So just to make it go a little bit faster, if you could refrain from that one, the others, you can do what you want, but I'm just trying to suggest it's not necessary. It's preserved. Then they read back the question again. Okay, so we go back to Elaine. Okay, do you have any understanding what the legal process would be to charge someone with perjury? Jen, to the best of my understanding through what I do know of law is that you don't. Mr. Sphere, no, stop. Witness, yeah, okay. Mr. Fear, I'm instructing you not to answer that question. Jen, okay. Mr. Sphere, the question is totally out of bounds for this witness, so ask another question, please. Elaine, no, it's not out of bounds because she made that statement. I want to know if she has an understanding to make that statement, and we have it in writing. Mr. Sphere, well, you can show her the writing, but she's testified she did not make the statement. It's totally out of bounds to ask her questions around her legal training is and what her understanding of the FBI process is, etc. Elaine, Mr. Sphere, can you please put on the record what the basis for your instructing her not to answer is? Mr. Sphere, I just put it on the record. You can ask another question. Elaine, the legal basis. Mr. Sphere, I just gave you the legal basis. Elaine, anything else you'd like to add to this? Mr. Sphere, nope. Elaine, all right. So next question. So you talked about Google Alerts, and in fact, you have been rather obsessed with Amber Heard and Johnny Depp for many years, have you not? Camille, objection, argumentative, lack of foundation, assumes facts, not an evidence. It's harassment. Elaine, harassment. Jen, absolutely not true. I think she's got better things to focus her attention on other than Amber and Johnny, like her fucking charity. Anyway, Elaine, isn't it true that you've had Google Alerts on your phone for both Amber Heard and Johnny Depp for many years? Mr. Sphere, Jen, 4 seconds. Count 1, 2, 3, 4 before you answer the question, okay? I know it's tough because these questions are kind of being screamed at you, but just take a few minutes, a few seconds. Let Camille object, okay? Elaine, hold up before you start. You just made the statement that the questions are being screamed. Are you? Am I too loud? Yes, Elaine, you are, but Mr. Sphere said they're very aggressive questions and a non-party witness. Elaine, is that the reason? Is that the reason you're saying screamed is because of that? Or should I be turning my volume down? We've had some of these Zooms where people have had difficulty hearing me. So we've had to calibrate that. But I think if I'm too loud, I can calibrate my sound back down. Mr. Sphere, no, we can hear you just fine. It's more the tone of the question than it is how loud they are. Elaine, which I have every right to ask. Mr. Sphere, go ahead. Elaine, can you read back the question, please? So the reads it back. We're not going to go over it. Camille, Miss Howell, I need to state my objections on the record, so you need to wait, please. Okay. Elaine, have you ever had Google Alerts for Johnny Depp and Amber Heard on your phone? Jen, no. Elaine, so if others said you did, they would be lying? Jen, yes. Camille, objection, assumes facts, not an evidence, is argumentative, and it's asked and answered. Elaine, describe your relationship with James Franco. Jen, we had business together with Vince Giovanetti. I don't know how to say that name. We were doing an Elysium Bandini Studios, and we've been friends for a very long time. Question, do you consider yourself still a friend of James Franco? Jen, yes, and I would say estranged at the moment, but yes. Elaine, how has it been since you've spoken with James Franco? How long has it been? Jen, I spoke to James in October of last year. Elaine, and what did you speak with James Franco about in October of last year? Camille, objection, calls for hearsay. So Jen said, we spoke about many things. We honestly caught up, but we had not spoken in a long time. Elaine, did you speak about anything relating to Amber Heard in your October 2020 phone call? Jen, there was possibly one reference to it, which was he was going to do the right thing. Elaine, he said he was going to do the right thing. Jen, yeah. Elaine, and what did he say? And did he say what that was? Jen, he did not, and I did not ask. Elaine, you didn't ask James Franco whether he saw bruises on Amber Heard on May 22nd, 2016. Camille, objection, lack of foundation, calls for hearsay, assumes facts, not an evidence. Jen, no, I did not. Elaine, and I want to make sure that I have your answer correct. So you have never is what I asked, and you said, no, I did not. Have you ever asked James Franco whether he saw bruises on Amber Heard on May 22nd, 2016? Jen, no. Camille, same objection. Elaine, have you ever had a relationship with James Franco earlier in time? Camille, objection, vague, ambiguous, lack of foundation. Jen, no. Elaine, have you ever told anyone you were married to James Franco in an earlier life and had children with him? What? I'm sorry. What the actual fuck, Elaine? So I am sure that Ambi Pants just decided to throw that in. And Elaine thought, well, this girl's a wackadoo. So, oh my God, Elaine, you are so gullible. You are so gullible. Why didn't you just flop that off as this doesn't mean shit? Forward we go. Camille, objection, lack of foundation, argumentative. Jen, no, I have not. Elaine, you have never told anyone that. Jen, no. Camille, objection, asked and answered, and it's harassment, Elaine. Jen, no. Elaine, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I get your answer. Jen, no, I have not. Question. Now, James Franco has a very good childhood friend, does he not? Camille, objection, calls for speculation, lack of foundation, assumes facts, not an evidence, relevance. Elaine, Vince. Jen, yes. Elaine, okay, what's his full name? Jen, Vince Giolivetti. Oh, I think I got it right. Question, okay, and what's your current relationship with Vince? Jen, very close friends. Elaine, and was there a time you had a rift, if you will, with Vince because of the business you had with James Franco and Vince, and you had, I'm sorry, go ahead. Camille, objection, assumes facts, not an evidence. It's compound, it's vague, it's ambiguous. And reporter said he did not get an answer. Jen said yes. Elaine, what was that? What was the problem with that? What was the issue? Camille, objection, vague and ambiguous. Jen, the rift, it was over business. They did not follow through on their side of the business agreement. That what we were doing with the film company. Elaine, I didn't hear the last part. They did not follow through on what with the business with what? Jen, we were doing a merger between their production company and the charity to create a philanthropic studio. There was a lot of things they did not follow through on with that business agreement, and that's why we had the rift. Elaine, when you said they did not, that was James Franco and Vince? Jen, their company. So I cannot say which individual, but they collectively, yes. Elaine, do you recall approximately when that was? Jen, Vince, September 2017 is whenever I would say it was kind of the big blowout between Vince and I. Elaine, and for what period of time after that were you not speaking? Jen, probably till fall of 2019, I think. Elaine, and was there a period of time that you also were not speaking with James Franco as a result of this blowout? Jen, different reasons. James had moved in with me and had moved out in April of 2017 because he was going through something personal and we did not speak. Well, actually, that's not true. We spoken a few times after he moved out, but he was kind of going through his own issues. Elaine, I missed part of your answer there. I think you said that James moved in with you and then moved out. I missed your dates. Jen, he moved out in April of 2017 and we spoke a few times over the years, but he was going through his own kind of journey. Elaine, when did James Franco move in with you? Jen, if I'm not mistaken, September of 2016. Wait, I'm sorry, hold on. Yeah, 16. Yeah, 16 to 17. Elaine, and why did James Franco move in with you in September of 2016? Jen, he was having some personal issues. Elaine, did you have a romantic relationship at any times with James Franco? Jen, no. Elaine, have you had a romantic relationship at any time with Vince? Jen, yes. Elaine, when? Jen, God, it's been so long, I can't even tell you. Probably it would have been before 2009, I would say, because I started dating someone that, yeah, it was before 2009. Elaine, okay, have you had a conversation with Vince at any time about whether James Franco saw the bruises on Amber Heard on May 22nd, 2016? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not an evidence, lack of foundation. Jen, I don't think he knows. I have no idea. I think the only conversations that we had consistently is for him to come forward and say what he did or did not see. I don't know what he did or did not see. That's his story to tell. Elaine, and when you're saying are you talking about James Franco? Jen, yeah. Okay, so this is Elaine. Okay, now you've never been present for any interaction between Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. Is that correct? Jen, I've been there. I've been to their home before where they have been. I mean, I have seen each other there, but yes, nothing of record that I can think of, no. Elaine, how many times were you at Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's home where the two of them were there? Jen, Amber and I had dinner one night where she cooked and he came home after that. And then when Whitney was dating Ryan Adams, I went there to meet Ryan with Whitney. Whitney dated Ryan Adams? I had no idea. Not that I care, but I had no idea. I went there to meet with Ryan and Whitney, and Savannah was there, and Amber, I believe, came in at some point, and honestly, Johnny may or may not have come home later that night. I don't remember. Elaine, all right, any other time? Jen, at their house? Not that I'm aware of, no. Elaine, all right, the dinner that was cooked by Amber that Johnny came in later, when was that? Jen, I don't know the date. Jack Depp, he was playing video games. I can tell you what happened, but not recall the date. Elaine, do you recall what year? Jen, no ma'am. Elaine, do you recall how long you saw Johnny Depp that night? Jen, no, he came in at the end of the night, talked to us in the kitchen. No clue how long that took. Elaine, do you remember which house that was in? Jen, the penthouse down at the Eastern. Elaine, okay. And the other time that you said that you were there to meet Ryan Adams, do you have a recollection whether Johnny Depp was ever there that night? Jen, I feel like he came in at the end as well, but I'm not sure on that. Elaine, and do you recall when that was? Jen, no ma'am. Elaine, do you remember what year? Jen, when Whitney was dating Ryan is the only way I could date that, so no. Elaine, do you know when Whitney was dating Ryan? Jen, she was in my life, so I would say 15 or 16. Elaine, can you do better than that? Jen, no ma'am. Elaine, okay, now have you ever seen any interaction between Amber Heard and Johnny Depp on any other occasion other than these two? Answer, her birthday dinner, that was the sushi restaurant, and that the Heaven events that they came together. Elaine, which year was the birthday dinner at the sushi restaurant for Amber? Jen, they were married, so I'm going to say I will go with 2016, 15 or 16. Elaine, do you recall which? Jen, no ma'am. Elaine, but you recalled that it was at a sushi restaurant? Jen, yeah ma'am. Question, do you recall who else was there? Jen, either Mark or Johnny Houston. I get them confused. They're twins. That's who I was sitting with. Tash, Whitney, that's who I talked to. Elaine, and other than the birthday dinner that was either into April of 2015 or 16, and the night of the dinner cooking that he came later, and the third time to meet Ryan Adams, have you ever, and then the Elysium, Art of Elysium Heaven Nights, have you ever seen Johnny Depp and Amber Heard interacted all together? Jen, not to my recollection. Elaine, how many times did Johnny Depp and Amber Heard attend an Art of Elysium event together? Jen, 2 or 3. 2 or 3. Elaine, do you recall which years? Jen, Linda Perry, so I think that would have been 2014. Marina I'm not even going to attempt that one. You guys are on your own, which is where Amber was honored, which would be 2015. And then the Vivienne Westwood, 2016. Elaine, in any of the occasions that you saw Amber Heard and Johnny Depp interact together, did you observe them at any time fighting in any manner, verbally or physically? Jen, no. Elaine, would it be accurate to say that you have no personal knowledge of whether Amber Heard was a victim of DV by Mr. Depp? Isn't that correct? Camille, objection, calls for legal conclusion. It's vague, it's ambiguous, and compound. Jen, from what I have seen with my own eyes, that is true. Elaine, and you have not been present for any of the interaction between Amber and Whitney Heard involving fighting, or any nature, verbal, physical. Isn't that correct? Jen, that is correct. Question, so everything you were testifying to as the truth, and you've used the truth quite a few times, would you agree with me? Jen, yeah. Camille, objection, argumentative. Elaine, would you agree with me if you've used the term the truth many times? Jen, yes. Camille, objection, vague and ambiguous. Elaine, so everything you are testifying to is the truth, is based on your conversations with others telling you about events or conversations. Would you agree? Jen, my conversations with Whitney is all I base this off of. So from what Whitney told me, that is where all this comes from. Elaine, and you have never witnessed firsthand any of the events that you say Whitney told you, correct? Jen, no. Elaine, I asked that so badly. When you say no, does it mean I'm correct or... Jen, sorry about that. Yes, you are correct. Elaine, okay. In fact, the vast majority of these events were more than 5 years ago and are based on your recollection of conversations with Whitney that you're recalling now. Isn't that correct? Camille, objection compound, assumes facts, not on evidence, and is asked and answered. Jen, yeah. Elaine, okay. And you had said in one of your declarations that you were providing text, emails, opening up your files to substantiate your recollection. Do you recall saying that? Jen, yeah. Camille, objection, assumes facts, not on evidence. Jen, yeah. Elaine, okay, but in fact, there are no text, emails, or other documents supporting any of the statements that you say Whitney Heard has said. Isn't that correct? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not on evidence. It's overbroad, lack of foundation. Jen, I have provided everything that I could find, and sadly, your servers, Jen goes on, only go back 3 years when I call our tech guy. So that's why I don't have anything from that time period. Elaine, all right. And just so we're clear, are you aware of any text, emails, or other documents that you possess and provided to us that support any of the statements you say Whitney Heard said? Camille, objection, compound. Jen, I'm not sure I understand. I don't understand what you're asking. Sorry. Elaine, I just want to make sure that we have a clear record here. And my understanding is that you had said that you would provide text, emails, and documents supporting these statements. But in fact, when you went back, you were unable to because your server only goes back 3 years. And all of these statements were roughly 5-6 years ago, correct? Camille, objection, misstates the witness testimony, assumes facts not on evidence, is vague, ambiguous, compound. Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, that's correct? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay. Now, and in fact, when you went through the documents in preparation for this deposition today, did you find any text, emails, or documents that supported the statements that you say Whitney Heard made? Camille, objection, compound. Jen, no, ma'am. I could not access them. Elaine, okay. Have you ever taken any type of DV training? What? Camille, objection, lack of relevance. Jen, I had some training with the different groups that we work with because we work with some battered, some of the people we work with in the homeless shelters have gone through abuse. So I would not say a full training, but we've definitely been brought up to speed by several facilities we work with about what to expect. Elaine, okay. And when you say about what to expect, what do you mean by that? Jen, just when we go into the volunteer, what to expect from, just the populations we work with is the best way to say it. Elaine, and what is your best recollection? What you've been told to expect in connection with DV? Camille, objection, vague, ambiguous, it's compound. Jen, just to be gentle. Jen, we take artists in various populations, so we have to prep them. So we're trained per the facilities. We go in, and in some of those, there have been abuse to both children, women, veterans. We work with various populations. So depending on facilities, kind of varies on how we interact with them, but to just be aware of what they've gone through and to be sensitive to that. I mean, it's more elaborate than that, but I'm not exactly sure what you're looking for in that question or what. I mean, I've had training in various facilities, so I've learned a lot. Elaine, I'm just trying to understand. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you and I didn't hear you. Please finish. Jen, I'm just not sure what you're asking. I don't think there is any way for me to answer all of the different training I've had for different facilities in the past nearly 24 years, if that makes sense. Elaine, so I'm just trying to understand what you mean when you say be sensitive to these women and children who have been abused. Sorry. What is that you're training your actors to be sensitive to? Camille, objection, that's vague and ambiguous. Jen, yeah, I don't know. Their emotional needs. Again, it depends on the facility. So it varies greatly to be sensitive to their emotional needs. Elaine, which facilities have you been to as part of the Art of Elysium that is dealing with children of abuse or women of abuse? Jen, I mean, within the hospitals, starting out with, we've dealt with a lot of abuse situations from the UCLA Trauma Center to Children's Hospital of Los Angeles to Shriners. 2 patients have come in to do one-on-one workshops who have come in from other countries and been attacked. So, I mean, again, we're celebrating 24 years of service coming up, so it's varied greatly over the years. Elaine, when you were at the UCLA training facilities or at the hospital? Jen, we were at the second facility. I believe we went in, Children's was first, and then Shriners, UCLA, and Kaiser were kind of the next in line that we went into there. Elaine, when you're saying we, I guess I'm asking you specifically for you. Did you go to the UCLA training center? Jen, trauma center? Yes. Elaine, trauma center. Okay. Jen, in the beginning of the charity, I ran all the program myself. Elaine, when was the last time you've been to the UCLA Trauma Center? Jen, I have no idea. It's been a long time. I have no idea the last time I've been to the UCLA. Elaine, would you say more than 10 years? Jen, probably. Elaine, when was the last time you went to the Children's Hospital? Jen, I was there last month. Elaine, and was that in connection with any abuse to children or women? Jen, no, it was for the Art of Elysium. Elaine, when were you last at Shriners? Jen, again, I don't have dates. I really can't begin to even guess. Not a clue. Elaine, would you say more than 10 years? Jen, no, I would say less than 10 years. Elaine, more than 5? Jen, I honestly cannot answer you on that. I would have to go back and look at dates. Elaine, what about Kaiser? When was the last time you were there? Jen, probably I think 16 or 17. The last time I did a workshop there, I was there for, probably 16 or 17 for a workshop. Elaine, was the workshop, I'm sorry. Jen, can I just grab something to drink? It's in the other room. I'm with you, Jen. I am with you. You know what? I need a drink too. I'll be back. I'm just going to pause for a second. Okay, so now that I am fully whistled wet, okay. Elaine said, oh, absolutely. Do you want to take a 5-minute break? Is everyone just, Jen, whatever y'all want to do. Mr. Sphere, let's do that. No, let's take a 5-minute break. Oh, I could have taken a 5-minute break with them. Elaine, it's fine to take breaks whenever you need them, Miss Howell. So that's fine. We've been going for a little bit. We can take a 5-minute break, give everyone a bathroom break and water break or whatever. It's fine. So they all went off and then they come back. Elaine, Miss Howell, I was in the middle of a question, I think, when we broke, and you had just indicated that you had done a workshop in 2016 or 17 at Kaiser. Was the workshop related in any way to victims of abuse? Jen, no, ma'am. Just to clarify, there's abuse victims within the facilities. They're not specific just abuse facilities we work with, if that makes sense. Elaine, are you aware of any of the dynamics? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Were you still talking? Jen, no, I was just saying if that makes sense. I just wanted to clarify because I can't tell you I can't tell you when I've gone just to domestic violence because it's within the facilities we work with. And those are some of the people that we work with in other facilities, just to clarify. Elaine, are you aware of any of the dynamics in abusive relationships? Camille, objection, vague and ambiguous, assumes facts, not an evidence, calls for expert opinion. Jen, no, ma'am. Elaine, okay, do you have any understanding of how damaging it is to the victim of abuse to be called a liar by people who don't know whether the allegations are true or false? Camille, objection. Miss Howell, count to 5, please. Objection, assumes facts, not an evidence, calls for speculation. It's vague and ambiguous, calls for expert testimony. Elaine, now you indicated that you read some of the transcript of the UK proceedings. Did you read all of the transcripts? Jen, I would say the vast majority, yes. Elaine, did you look at any of the evidence that had been presented? We all did, Elaine. That's why we calling her a liar. Camille, objection, vague and ambiguous as to evidence. Yeah, exactly. Elaine, by evidence, what I mean is, in addition to testimony, they call them trial bundles, and they frequently refer to, you would have seen those in the transcripts as referring to bundle 5 and there would be a page number. There were photos, videos, audios, emails, texts. Did you read any of those? Jen, no, ma'am. Elaine, okay. I'm going to ask Alex if you're bringing up exhibit number 8, please. Elaine, I'm going to show you, Miss Howell, what has been marked as exhibit number 8, and then I'm going to ask Alex to play this. I'm going to ask you if you can identify the individuals and whenever you have ever seen this before. Camille, before Alex, you hit play on Elaine's favorite video, I'm going to lodge some objections. This is hearsay, lack of foundation, assumes facts, not an evidence. I mean, you haven't explained at all to the witness what you're about to show her. You haven't laid any foundation, Elaine, and it's irrelevant. Elaine, well, I'm happy to say that this is one of the exhibits that was presented in the UK trial. It is a videotape that was taped by Amber Heard of Mr. Depp in February of 2016. And then I'm going to ask you, as we go through it, if you can identify the individuals and whether you have ever seen this video before. Camille, I'm also going to, Ms. Bredehoff's description of the video and specifically the time is in dispute, so my objections stand. Jen, may I say something just for the sake of time and just to keep everyone's time, just to be respectful? All I know and all I came forward with, and all I want to be very clear about this, and I thought I was doing the right thing. I know what Whitney told me, why she came to stay with me, and what she asked to stay with me for. This is what I know. I have never presented to know anything else, nor acted as though I do. I have why Whitney came to stay with me, what she told me, and she was coming to stay with me. And that's what she consistently told me the entire time she was there. Everything else you can ask all day long. I don't know. So all I wanted to do was tell the truth because sorry. I'm going to start that over. So all I wanted to do was tell the truth because I mistakenly thought that that's what you do whenever you realize someone is not telling the truth. That is what I thought. So just show me whatever, but you're just wasting everybody's time. I'm telling you what I know, and that's not why I'm here. Camille, I will agree it's a waste of everyone's time to show a video to a witness that she was not present for. Elaine, I'm going to move to strike the entire speech that was just given by Miss Howell. And Alex, I would like you to please play. Whereupon the video was played. Elaine, Miss Howell, I'm going to ask you, do you recognize the two individuals in this video? Camille, lack of foundation, hearsay, assumes facts, not an evidence. Jen, yes. Elaine, and who are they? Jen, Amber, and Johnny. Elaine, I think you've already indicated that you never saw this video before. Is that correct? Jen, I have looked at a ton of stuff trying to make sense of this online. I'm not sure if this is one of them or not. It's very easily could be. There's a ton of stuff out there, and I've researched, trying to make sense of all of it myself. So I'm not sure if this is what I saw or not. Elaine, you can't recall in all of that research trying to make sense of things whether you saw this video. Camille, objection, asked and answered. Jen, I cannot say for certain that this is a video I saw, but I'm sure. Elaine, have you ever seen Mr. Depp? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Are you finished? Jen, yeah. Elaine, have you ever seen Mr. Depp behave like that? Camille, objection, vague and ambiguous. It's compound. Jen, no. Elaine, I'm going to ask you now to take a look at number 9. Before we pull that up, you had made a statement about the May 21st incident and the allegations by Ms. Heard and have suggested that you don't believe that she actually was injured by Mr. Depp on May 21st, 2016. Is that correct? Camille, objection, vague, ambiguous, lack of foundation, assumes facts, not an evidence, and it's compound. Jen, probably my letter to Whitney would be the time that I think I would have probably made that statement. Elaine, and do you recall suggesting that you didn't believe that, let me just finish my question, that you didn't believe that Amber Heard had been beaten or been the victim of domestic violence of Johnny Depp on May 21st, 2016. Is that correct? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not an evidence. Jen, yeah. Elaine, okay. And what basis did you believe that? Jen, I have made my entire basis on this is what Whitney shared with me while she lived with me. Had she ever one time said to me that she was concerned for her sister's safety, I would have gotten people over there and to help intervene in the situation. That's not what Whitney ever said to me. It was always the complete opposite. That is why I've never believed that she has been hurt by him, because with everything that Whitney said, I don't know why she would leave that detail out. Elaine, and that's the basis of your believing that Mr. Depp did not commit DV on Amber Heard on May 21st, 2016. Is that correct? Jen, that is the basis for my believing on everything. Yes. Elaine, all right, let me see. Jen, I mean, that is all that I have. Just to be clear, it's all that I've ever had. So please, if we can talk about that, that would be great. Elaine, all right, can we bring up Alex and number 9 now, please? Elaine, I'm going to show you what's been marked as Deposition Exhibit number 9, and it's a picture that was taken on May 21st, 2016 at 8:23 p.m. Ah, yes, the epic picture that Johnny was still in the building for. Do you recognize the person in this picture? Jen, I do. Elaine, and do you see the red marks on her face? Camille, objection, vague and ambiguous, assumes facts, not an evidence, calls for hearsay, and misstates the record. Jen, I do. Elaine, and is this Amber Heard? Jen, yes. Elaine, all right, thank you. Elaine, let's take this one down and let's go to number 10. Before I go to number 10, have you ever seen this picture before from exhibit number 9? Jen, I will say the same thing. I'm not sure what I have seen and what I have not. It looks familiar, but again, I've looked at all the stuff. I'm trying to make sense of this. So same answer. Elaine, okay. Now, Alex, if you can bring up number 10, please. I'm going to show you what has been marked as exhibit number 10. This is a photo taken on May 21st, 2016 at 9:22. Do you recognize this to be Amber Heard? Jen, yeah. Elaine, and do you see the red marks on her face here? Camille, objection, vague and ambiguous, assumes facts, not on evidence, calls for hearsay, misstates the record, lack of foundation. Jen, yeah. Elaine, okay. And do you recall whether you've ever seen this picture before? Jen, I do not recall. Elaine, all right, let's take that down and go to number 11. I'll show you what's been marked as deposition exhibit number 11, dated May 21st, 2016 at 9:22 p.m. Do you recognize this as Amber Heard? Jen, yeah. Elaine, all right, and do you see red marks on her face in this picture? Camille, objection, calls for speculation, assumes facts, not on evidence, misstates the record, compound. Jen, yeah. Elaine, okay, and do you recall ever seeing this picture before? Jen, I do not recall. Elaine, with this one as well as the last two, do you know whether these pictures were admitted as evidence in the UK trial? Jen, I do not. Camille, objection, calls for speculation. Elaine, I'm sorry, you'll need to answer that again. Jen, I have no idea. Elaine, okay, I'm going to ask now to see number 12. Alex, I'm going to ask you to look at exhibit number 12, taken on May 21st, 2016 at 9:24 p.m. And do you recognize this as Amber Heard? Jen, yeah. Ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Elaine, and do you see marks on her face in this picture? Camille, objection, vague and ambiguous, compound, assumes facts, not evidence, misstates the record. Jen, yes. Elaine, okay, and do you recall whether you've ever seen this picture before? Jen, I do not recall. Elaine, and do you know whether it was in evidence in the UK trial as well? Camille, calls for speculation. Jen, no idea. Elaine, okay, let's take that down and go to 13. It's frozen, technician. They just want to know how much time they had on the tape. Elaine, I can't see the number. Okay, Miss Howell, I'm going to show, this is Elaine. Miss Howell, I'm going to show you what has been marked as Howell exhibit number 13. This was taken on May 21st, 2016 at 9:25 p.m. Do you recognize this as Amber Heard? Jen, yep. And do you see red marks on her face? Jen, yep. Camille, objection, assumes facts, not on evidence, vague and ambiguous. Jen, yes. Elaine, and have you ever seen this picture before? Jen, I do not recall. Elaine, okay, do you know whether this was in evidence in the UK trial? Camille, objection, calls for speculation. Jen, no idea. Elaine, okay, let's go to 14, Alex. I'll show you what has been marked as deposition exhibit number 14. It's dated May 21st, 2016 at 9:25. Do you recognize as Amber Heard? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, all right. And do you see red marks on her face in this picture? Camille, objection, vague, ambiguous, assumes facts, not in evidence. Jen, yes. Elaine, okay. Have you ever seen this picture before? Jen, I do not recall. Do you know whether this was in evidence in the UK trial? Jen, I do not. Elaine, okay. Elaine, let's go to 15, Alex. I'm going to show you what has been marked as Howell exhibit number 15, dated May 21st, 2016, taken at 11:57 p.m. Do you recognize this as Amber Heard? Jen, yes. Elaine, and do you see the red marks on her face in this picture? Camille, objection, vague, ambiguous, assumes facts, not in evidence. Jen, yes. Elaine, and have you seen this picture before? Jen, I do not recall. And do you know whether this was in evidence in the UK trial? Jen, no. Elaine, we can take that one down. And let's go to number 16. Alex puts up number 16. Elaine, Miss Howell, I'm going to show you what has been marked as exhibit number 16, Howell exhibit number 16. This is a video clip from the elevators at the Eastern Columbia building. That's the penthouse that you were referring to. And if you look down at the bottom, it's camera 2. It says 15/21/2016 at 20:28, which they do the 24-hour time. So we're talking, I think it would be, if I'm going to get that right, 10:28 p.m. Did you see that? Jen, no response. Elaine, I'm going to ask you to take a look at this video clip, and then I'm going to ask you if you recognize anyone in there, and then I'll ask you some questions afterwards. Elaine, go ahead, Alex. Elaine, do you recognize that gentleman? Camille, objection, vague, ambiguous. Jen, I'm going to go with this Johnny Depp. I mean, I couldn't really get a clear view, but I'm going with the hat and the side face. Yeah. Elaine, do you recognize the other two men with him? Jen, no. Camille. Oh, sorry, Elaine. Okay, have you ever seen this video clip before? Jen. Not that I don't recall with all. Elaine, do you know whether this was in evidence in the UK proceedings? Jen. Not a clue. Elaine. Now I'm going to ask you, go ahead, Alex, if you can bring up Exhibit 17. I'm going to ask you to look at what is marked as Howell Deposition, Exhibit number 17. Do you recognize the person in this picture? Jen, yes. Who is it? Jen, Amber. Elaine, okay. And do you see bruising and marks on her face? Camille, objection, vague, ambiguous, assumes facts not on evidence, hearsay, lack of foundation. Jen, yes. Elaine, do you recall ever seeing this picture before? Jen, I do not recall. Elaine, do you know whether this was in evidence in the UK trial? Jen, I do not. Elaine, I'm going to ask Alex if you can now pull up 18. Do you recognize, I'm not going to ask you to look at what is Howell Deposition Exhibit 18. Do you recognize this is Amber Heard in this picture? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, all right. And do you see bruising on Amber's face? Camille, objection, assumes facts not on evidence, vague and ambiguous. Jen, yes. Elaine, and have you ever seen this picture before? Jen, I do not recall. Do you ever? Here we go again. She asked if it was in the UK trial evidence. Jen said no. Elaine, okay, take that one down and let's go to the next. Are we at 19, Alex? It's just out of my reach there. Elaine goes on. I'm going to ask you, Miss Howell, to take a look at what has been marked as Howell Exhibit number 19. Do you recognize this as Amber Heard? Jen, yes, ma'am. And do you see the marks on her face and bruising? Camille, objection, vague, ambiguous, assumes facts not in evidence, and it's hearsay. Elaine, have you ever seen this picture before? Jen, I do not recall. Elaine, do you know whether it's admitted in the UK trial? Jen, no, ma'am. Elaine, okay, let's go to number 20, Alex. Oh my God. Elaine, I'm going to ask you to take a look at what has been marked as Howell Exhibit number 20. Do you recognize Amber Heard in this picture? Jen, yes. And do you see red marks on her face in this picture? Camille, objection, vague and ambiguous, assumes facts not evidence, calls for hearsay. Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay, have you ever seen this picture before? Jen, I do not recall. Do you know whether this picture was in evidence in the UK trial? God, Jen, no, ma'am. Elaine, okay, you can take that down. Let's go to 21. I'm going to ask you to look at Howell Exhibit number 21. Do you recognize this as Amber Heard? Jen, yes. And do you see bruising in this picture on Amber? Camille, objection, vague and ambiguous, assumes facts not in evidence, calls for hearsay. Jen, actually, no, ma'am. I don't see it on this one. I'm sorry. Elaine, okay. Jen, I don't. Elaine, I do. Okay, have you ever seen this picture before? Jen, I do not recall. Elaine, do you know whether this was in evidence in the UK trial? Jen, no, ma'am, I don't. Elaine, all right, let's go to the next one. I think it's 22, right, Alex? I'm going to show you what has been marked as Howell Exhibit number 22. Do you recognize Amber Heard in this? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, all right, and do you see injury to Amber's lip? Jen, yeah. Camille, objection, assumes facts not evidence, lack of foundation, calls for hearsay, it's vague and ambiguous. Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay, do you see blood on her lip? Camille, objection, assumes facts not evidence, asked and answered, lack of foundation. Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay, have you ever seen this picture before? Jen, I do not recall. Elaine, do you know whether this picture was in evidence in the UK trial? Jen, no, ma'am. Elaine, okay, let's go to 23, Alex. I'm going to show you what has been marked as exhibit number 23, and this is the text message from Whitney to Kevin Murphy. Do you know who Kevin Murphy is? Jen, through Whitney, I believe yes. I believe that was Kevin she referred to. Elaine, and do you know what Kevin Murphy's position was with Mr. Depp at the time of this text message, March 23rd, 2015? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not evidence. Jen, not specifically. I just know that Whitney communicated with someone named Kevin. She referred to him often. Elaine, and what is your understanding that he worked for Mr. Depp? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay, all right, I'm sorry, but I think I got your dates. You said that Whitney lived with you from May 2015 to April 2016, correct? Jen, yes, ma'am. Okay, so this would have been roughly a month and a half before Whitney moved in with you. Is that correct? Jen, yeah. Elaine, okay, so if you look at the first page, it says, good morning, sir. So Johnny destroyed Amber's closet and there's some other damage to Penthouse 5. Do you know what Penthouse 5 is? Jen, I'm sure it's Penthouse 5. I would not know the difference between the penthouses, but I know there was a bunch of them. Elaine, okay. Then she says, you're the lucky person. I should talk about this, correct? And the answer is, I suppose so. I'm up. And then Whitney says, Insanity, just fucking insanity. And then there's a picture here of the damage. Have you seen this message or this picture before? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not evidence. Jen, not that I recall. Elaine, okay, do you know whether this was introduced into evidence in the UK trial? Jen, no ma'am. Elaine, okay, thank you. Let's go to exhibit number 24. Alex puts up number 24 and Elaine goes on. All right, this is also the same day, a continuation of the text message from Whitney to Kevin Murphy, and it has some additional pictures in it. Would you agree these appear to be depicting damage, property damage? Camille, objection, vague, ambiguous, assumes facts, not on evidence, it's compound, it calls for hearsay. Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay, have you ever seen this picture, this particular text message with these pictures before? Jen, I do not recall. Elaine, do you know whether these were admitted into evidence in the UK proceedings? Jen, no, ma'am. Elaine, okay, let's go to the next one. I believe I'm up to 24. I just can't get, there we go, 25. We're at 25 now. Good. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to take a look at the next Howell 25. I'm going to ask you if this is another continuation of text messages from Whitney Heard to Kevin Murphy. And it says, just to give you an idea, and he says, be down later, I'll call you, and there's some pictures there. Would you agree that these pictures reflect property damage? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not on evidence, calls for hearsay, it's vague and ambiguous. Jen, I mean, from the top portion, I can see it. I'm not sure I'm looking at it down there. I don't see anything damaged down below, but the top one there, yes, I see something was damaged. Elaine, okay, have you ever seen these pictures before or these texts? Jen, I do not recall. Elaine, okay, do you know whether these were admitted into the UK trial? Jen, no ma'am, no clue. Elaine, okay, let's go to 26. There is a continuation of the text messages from Kevin to Whitney, and I'm going to ask you if you ever seen these pictures before. Jen, I do not recall. Elaine, would you agree that they reflect property damage? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not on evidence, calls for hearsay, it's vague, it's ambiguous, it's compound. Jen, yes. Elaine, do you know whether these were admitted into evidence as part of the trial in the UK? Jen, no ma'am, I do not. Elaine, all right, let's go to 27. I'm going to ask you to take a look at Deposition exhibit number 27. Do you recognize this picture to be Amber Heard? Jen, yes. Elaine, okay, and do you see some bruising at her hairline? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not on evidence, calls for hearsay, it's vague and ambiguous. Jen, no ma'am, honestly, I can't really tell what that is. It looks discolored, but I don't know what that is. Elaine, all right, do you see the red mark there right at the hairline too, along with the discoloration? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not on evidence, calls for hearsay, it's vague and ambiguous. Jen, I see right in here indicating where there's a different color. That's what I see. I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to on the hairline. Elaine, okay, have you ever seen this picture before? Jen, I do not recall. Elaine, do you recall whether this was in evidence in the UK trial? Jen, I do not. Elaine, let's go to 28. I'm going to show you what has been marked as Deposition exhibit number 28. Have you ever been in Amber Heard's bedroom at the penthouse? Jen, no ma'am. I feel like she gave me a tour at some point, but I don't recall going in the bedroom. Elaine, do you recognize this bed? Jen, no. Elaine, okay. Have you ever seen this picture before? Jen, I do not recall. Elaine, would you agree that it appears there is damage to the frame of the bed? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not on evidence, calls for hearsay, it's vague and ambiguous. Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, now, do you know whether this picture was part of the evidence in the UK proceedings? Jen, I don't know. Elaine, okay, let's take it down. Let's go to exhibit number 29. I'm going to show you what has been marked as exhibit number 29. Have you ever seen this document before? This picture? Jen, I do not recall. Elaine, it says, why be a fraud? All is such bullshit. Do you recognize where that's written? I asked that so badly. Let me rephrase it. Okay. I'm going to ask you to take a look at the language that's written on there, right? That's on here. Would you agree that's in gold or some color close to gold? Jen, yes. Elaine, all right. And it says, why be a fraud? All is such bullshit. Do you recognize the handwriting? Jen, no. Elaine, do you recognize where this countertop is? It's written on? Jen, no. Elaine, have you ever been in the kitchen in the penthouse? Camille, objection, vague and ambiguous. Elaine, let me ask it differently. Elaine, have you ever been in the kitchen of the penthouse in which Amber and Johnny lived? Jen, yeah, I have. Elaine, do you recognize this as being part of that kitchen? Jen, not from that photo, no. Elaine, do you remember what color the countertops were? Jen, no. I just know there was an island to the right. I sat there while she cooked and I talked to her. Elaine, do you remember what color the island was? Jen, no. Elaine, okay, do you know, I take it you've never seen this picture before, correct? Jen, no, I mean, I do not recall this photo at all. Elaine, do you know whether this was in evidence in the UK trial? Jen, no, ma'am, I do not. Elaine, okay, you can take that one down, and I'm going to ask you to take a look at what is exhibit number 7, Alex, if you could bring that up. Oh, Elaine. Elaine, I'm going to ask you to take a look at what has been marked as exhibit number 7, and I will represent to you that is the judgment decision of the High Court of the Queen's Bench Division of in Justice Nicol in the case of Mr. Depp versus News Group Newspapers Limited, also known as The Sun and Dan Wooten. It's 129 pages and it is 585 paragraphs, and it's dated November 2nd, 2020. Have you read that judgment? Jen, yes, I actually do not recall which one I've read, but I've read one of them. Elaine, well, what is your understanding? There was more than one judgment in the United Kingdom? Jen, I'm just saying I don't know about this document. No, that was not my understanding. There was more than one judgment. No. Elaine, do you have a recollection of reading a very long opinion from Justice Nicol relating to his findings in the case that Johnny Depp brought against the Sun newspapers and Dan Wooten? Jen, yes. Elaine, okay, and did you read the whole 129 pages? Jen, I skimmed it. I would not say I read it in depth, but yeah, I looked at it. Elaine, okay, now you were not mentioned once in the decision. Would you agree? Camille, objection, calls for speculation. The witness has already testified. She didn't read it word for word. Elaine, do you recall seeing your name anywhere in this decision? Jen, no, ma'am. Elaine, okay, and would you agree that the court found that Mr. Depp had engaged in at least 10 episodes of DV against Amber Heard? Camille, objection, calls for legal conclusion, assumes facts, not an evidence. Jen, sorry guys, yes ma'am. Elaine, okay, are you aware that Mr. Depp testified under oath after this judgment came out that there was no evidence that he wanted to present in the UK proceeding that he was not allowed to present? Camille, objection, misstates the record, lack of foundation, assumes facts, not an evidence. Jen, I did not know that. Elaine, are you aware that Mr. Depp has testified under oath since this judgment that there was no witnesses that he wanted to call in the UK proceeding that he was not allowed to call? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not evidence, calls for legal conclusion. Jen, no. Camille, it also misstates Mr. Depp's testimony. Elaine, now, why is it that you think you would be in a better position than Justice Nicol, having heard an extensive amount of testimony and evidence over 3 weeks to decide what the truth is? I'm sorry. We're going to take in Justice Nicol's word for it. We've read the judgment, Elaine. We've read it. We've read every goddamn page of the fucking UK everything. And trust me, Elaine, I've got an entire playlist of every time your client switched her story, her witnesses didn't add up. No, sorry. That just pissed me off right there. We move on. Camille, objection, argumentative, calls for legal conclusion, improper hypothetical, assumes facts not evidence, misstates the witness testimony. Oh, I just got fired up, guys. I'm sorry. Jen, the only truth that I have ever spoken to or tried to speak to is what Whitney said. What she said is she was either lying when she came to live with me and everything she told me then, or she lied there. That's all. And that was very alarming to me. And it seemed like a huge miscarriage of justice. That is all I can speak to. And that is where I keep saying that is all. If you want to ask me about, that is all I have knowledge of. Sorry, guys, I butchered that. Elaine, all right, well, let's go to the next deposition exhibit, number 30. And before we go there, let me just follow up. So it is your belief that because of things you say Whitney said to you, that everything that was presented in this trial is in the UK in July of 2020 is false? Elaine, she might not be saying it. I am. This girl right here is saying, yes, it was all false, from what I could see. Camille, objection. Vague and ambiguous compound calls for legal conclusion, argumentative, and it calls for hearsay. Jen, I have no way to speak to that. No, I can never say what happened or did not happen. That I was not privy to. I only know what Whitney told me day by day, play by play, and I did not add up with what she said. That's all I know. Elaine, okay, let's go ahead to exhibit number 30. And before we go into detail on that, if I understand you correctly, you're indicating that Whitney Heard between the time period of May 2015 and April 2016 told you that Amber Heard was an abusive person. Is that right? Jen, yes, ma'am, in great detail. Elaine, and so what did you do about that? Jen, nothing. Elaine, why not? Jen, I honestly never realized it was my place to be involved in this, and I would not be involved with it had Whitney not gotten on the stand. This is none of my business. And with what you're showing me, I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, I actually do love Amber, and I actually love Whitney because Whitney shared a lot of their childhood with me and a lot of what they went through, and I feel very bad for both of them. And I even thought, and even though I'm coming forward with the truth as I know it, and you're going to try and paint it as I don't care about these people, I care about them very much. So I'm going to ask you again, because I moved to strike that answer. Why did you take no action if you believe passionately that Amber Heard was an abuser? Camille, objection. It assumes facts and not evidence, misstates the witness testimony. Jen, because in my mind, he was a man and she was a woman. And with what Whitney told me that happened between them, they're sisters. And however they dealt with that ultimately was between them. So I, again, listened to her and talked to her at length about all of this, at length. And I never, honestly, had she ever told me Amber had been abused one time, as God is my witness, hand on Holy Bible, I would have gone to do something. I would never knowingly let Amber be hit or abused in any way, shape, or form. That is not the narrative that Whitney was telling me. And nobody who knows me or knows what I've done for the past 24 years knows I would never let a woman be abused. I apologize from the bottom of my heart that what she is telling me was happening between she and Johnny. I did not think the same about doing for a man. That is the God's honest truth. Elaine, move to strike that, non-responsive. And Camille, it's actually responsive. Elaine, let's go to, yeah. Camille, it's a responsive answer. Elaine, it's not responsive. Jen, everything that I'm telling you about why I'm truly doing this, you're moving to strike, and that's not fair. Camille, no worries, Miss Howell. Jen, okay. Elaine, just so you, Miss Court Reporter, just in case you didn't get it because I think I got interrupted, it was also on hearsay. Elaine, but in any event, let's go to exhibit. This is a text message between you and Amber Heard on January 11th, 2018. Now, this is fully a year and a half after you say that Whitney moved out in April 2016, correct? Jen, yes, 100%. Elaine, okay. And you believe in your heart of hearts, God is your witness, that Amber is an abuser, abused Whitney and abused Johnny. And this is your text exchange in January of 2016, correct? Yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay. Are you kidding me? I just received a check. I'm utterly without words. Thank you, thank you, thank you. When can I see you? I love you. I'm so grateful. I am in tears. So why did you love someone who's an abuser? Jen, Elaine. Oh, sorry, Camille. Objection, argumentative. Jen, I would go with argumentative on that, but I love her to this day. And the fact that you can compare me trying to do what is morally right and coming forward in the justice system and maybe not love someone is not fair. Elaine, all right, let's go to exhibit number 31. I'm going to show you what has been marked as exhibit number 31. Do you recognize this document? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay, let's check that it was, okay, this is the check that was paid to Art of Elysium by Amber Heard in the amount of $250,000, dated January 9th, 2018. Would you agree? Oh, hush money maybe. Maybe she thought if I give Jen Howell money, she will hushy. But did she know what Jen knew? Like, did she know what her sister had told? Who the fuck knows? I don't fucking know. Camille, objection, assumes facts not in evidence, lack of foundation, calls for hearsay, and misstates the record. Jen, it was in honor of Amber Heard. It is how it was sent, yes. Elaine, okay, so where on this document does it say it was in honor of Miss Heard? Jen, there was a note inside. Elaine, where's the note? Jen, I would have to check with my COO. She keeps copies of the checks. I don't know if she kept a copy of that or not. Elaine, Miss Howell, you were asked to produce all the documents responsive. Did you not undertake a complete investigation and thorough search to ensure you had all the responsive documents? Elaine, shut fuck up. Okay, Jen, yes, to the best of my ability, 100%. And she gave me this, the COO. I don't know if this is what I got when I was asking for copies of the check. Elaine, is there anything on here that suggests that this is not from Amber Heard? Jen. The note on the thing, yes, it was always not from her. It was on behalf of her, in honor of her. It was how it was listed. Not hush money. But was it musky money? Was it musky money? It was musky money. It's always been musky money. Always. So Elaine, you've never produced this note, have you? Jen, no ma'am. Elaine, wouldn't it be pretty important to have that note if you were going to claim that Amber Heard didn't give you $250K in January of 2018? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not evidence, asked and answered, and argumentative. Jen, it was an anonymous donation on behalf of Amber Heard. Elaine, and have you no document that supports that this was a quote anonymous donation on behalf of Amber Heard, do you? Jen, no. On me? No. I mean, again, I'll have to go back and ask and see if we can. I have no idea, but everyone was in the office knew it was an anonymous donation. Elaine, move to strike. Everyone else knew. Elaine, did you not make a thorough inquiry of your COO specifically when you were doing a claim that Amber Heard now did not give this money? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not an evidence, calls for hearsay, argumentative, it's bordering on harassment, asked and answered. Jen, we were doing this during COVID and I had a baby and I was on maternity leave. So we were trying to pull all the documents from all over the place. So to the best of our ability, yes. And if Amber gave it, that's amazing. I would still say thank you. That to me does not change anything at all. Elaine, all right. And that would be my next question. Wasn't this a very generous contribution for the Art of Elysium? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, and in fact, far greater the vast majority of your donations that you get, correct? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not an evidence. It's irrelevant. Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, and so why is it that you feel the need to detract or somehow take away from Amber being generous to you and giving you the $250K? Well, because it was someone else, it was in honor, it was on behalf, it did not actually come from her bank account. It was not her green that went into her account, going to Jen's account or the Art of Elysium's account. It was not her money. So there's no detracting. It is just stating a mere fact. Yes, Art of Elysium got $250K in her honor. Guess who else got money in her honor? CHLA and it's ACLU. They also got. So are they detracting too from her generous donations? Go jump, Elaine. I'm sorry. Camille, objection, assumes facts, not an evidence, misstates the witness testimony, argumentative, and harassment. Jen, I'm not taking away her generosity at all. I'm incredibly grateful for that. If she wrote the check or someone else wrote the check on her behalf, either way, I'm incredibly grateful for that. Elaine, so why was it important for you to say that it did not come from her, that it was coming from someone else? Oh my God, because it's the facts. It's the facts, Elaine. Camille, objection, assumes facts, not an evidence, misstates the witness testimony. It's argumentative. Jen, I'm not sure when you're speaking about that. If I was asked who it came from, it was an anonymous donation on her behalf, in her honor. That is what I said. That's how it was given to us. That's the only reason I've ever acknowledged it in that way. I'm so grateful everything ever did for the charity. That's not in dispute. Elaine, so would it be fair to say that a lot of the donations that come in through various bank accounts and don't come directly from the personal checking account of the individual? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not an evidence, lack of foundation, calls for speculation. Jen, donations come in a gazillion different forms, so however the donors want to donate is how they donate. Elaine, right. And if some of them come out of mutual funds, some of them come out of different bank accounts, some are in the form of through check services, would you agree? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay. Do you know whether this was one of Amber's accounts? Jen, from that note, we were led to believe it was from someone else on her behalf. Okay, you want to play that game, Elaine? You want to play that fucking game? I want to see from an account that has Amber Heard's fucking name on it, going from her account to the Art of Elysium. You're saying Jen can't do it? Neither can your client. Your client needs to go first. Sorry, that's the rule. That's the way I play the game. You want me to prove something? No, you go first. You're saying I'm a liar? You need to prove me a liar. That's it. Oh, the cojones on this woman. Anyway, forward we go. Where were we? Okay, Elaine, this is the note that has never been produced, correct? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, all right, now let me ask you, based on this document here, do you know whether this check came out of one of Amber Heard's accounts? Jen, no, I do not. Do you, Elaine? Do you? Elaine, I'm going to ask you now to take a look at exhibit. Well, before we go to that, do you recall that you testified a little bit earlier about James Franco and you and Vince, his friend, asking him to tell the truth about what he saw on May 22nd, 2016? Do you recall that testimony? Jen, yeah. Elaine, all right. Now I'm going to ask you to take a look at exhibit number 33. Elaine, now this is the document you produced. Jen, uh-huh. Elaine, in discovery in this case. Jen, uh-huh. Elaine, and it starts at the bottom of the page. Can you tell me what's at the top of this page? Jen, yeah. I put all the emails in one document and just copied and pasted because I've never pulled documents like this before. So there was nothing at the top of the page. Elaine, all right. Now that you have this one from you to Vince, right? This is the person we've talked about that has been a lifetime friend of James Franco, correct? Jen, yes. And a very long time friend of mine. Jen, sorry, Elaine. Okay, and by the way, how was the dispute with Mr. Jolivet and Mr. Franco and Art of Elysium resolved? Did they pay you more money? What happened there to get that resolved? Jen, nothing. Nothing on the business side. On the personal front, Vince came to my house in roughly October of 2019, apologized. That's how it was resolved. Elaine, okay, but they never paid you any money. Jen, no. It was not a financial dispute. It was an overall massive misunderstanding of what had been committed to. Elaine, okay, now this is on August 2nd, 2020, and that you've sent this email to Vince. This is shortly after the end of the trial and after you've reached out to Christy Dombrowski, and you have been speaking with Adam Waldman, who has been writing drafts of declarations for you, correct? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not on evidence. Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay, and it says, I sent the email because I had to do the right thing. The decision is in both of your hands, and I have done everything in my power to bring the truth to light. Whatever the consequences with any of this, I know I have done all in my power to be on the right side of justice, honesty, and truth. I love you. Is this to Vince, correct? Jen, yes. Elaine, did he respond to this email? Jen, he might have called me about it. Elaine, do you have a recollection? Jen, I do not recall. Elaine, all right, now let's go down to, I think, Adam, I'm going to go ahead and take the screen from you if you wouldn't. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to go down to the second page, and this is an email, and it's from you, subject, Anthony, dated August 2nd, 2020, to James Franco. Jen, uh-huh. Elaine, and then you go on and you have a few things you're talking about, and then you say, well, I got 2 subpoenas from Johnny Depp's. Let's see. I wonder if this is one of them. There we go. Elaine goes on. Alex, I'm having problems with this. I wonder if that's Elaine goes on. Well, I've got 2 subpoenas from Johnny Depp's attorneys and had to give a sworn statement to the truth after Whitney Heard brought me up on the stand. Do you see that? Jen, uh-huh. Elaine, so you decided that you had to come forward with these statements because you perceived Whitney Heard bringing you up on the stand? Would that be correct? Oh my God. The Camille, objection, assumes facts, not on evidence, misstates the document. The document speaks for itself. Jen, yeah, sorry, yes. Elaine, okay. And in fact, the 2 subpoenas you got from Johnny Depp's attorneys it actually turned out to be 1. You just had 2 copies, right? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, and you told Christy Dombrowski that you wanted to have a subpoena because That would make you feel more comfortable. Do you recall that? Camille, objection, assumes facts not on evidence, calls for hearsay. Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay. And in fact, Adam, how did you get that subpoena? Jen, it was emailed to me. Elaine, emailed to you? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay. And who emailed that subpoena to you? Jen, Adam, I believe it's in the documents I submitted. Elaine, and by Adam, we're talking about Adam Waldman. Yes, Elaine, your arch nemesis, Adam Waldman. Jen, yes. Elaine, okay. And did he tell you that he had not filed a subpoena with the Virginia court? Camille, objection, assumes facts not on evidence, calls for hearsay, calls for a legal conclusion. Elaine, were you aware that was not a valid subpoena when it was sent to you by Adam Waldman? Camille, objection, assumes facts not in evidence, calls for speculation, calls for a legal conclusion, and calls for hearsay. Jen, no, ma'am. Elaine, now that you have said here you had to give a sworn statement to the truth after Whitney Heard brought you up on the stand, you didn't have to give a statement, did you? Camille, objection, argumentative. Jen, I believe whenever I said that, I was referring to my own moral compass. I've had a very long conversation with my family about how to handle this. Elaine, all right. Then we'll go on a little bit and we go to the next thing. You say, I am attaching the letter that I personally wrote to Whitney after speaking to the attorney. The attorneys you're referring to is Adam Waldman? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, all right. And you wrote that letter to Whitney Heard and Mr. Waldman reviewed it and provided you with advice on that letter, did he not? Camille, objection, calls for legal conclusion, assumes facts not on evidence, calls for hearsay. Jen, he read the letter after I wrote it. He did not tell me what to put in the letter or edit it in any way. No. Elaine, why did you send the letter to James Franco? Jen, because I knew that he was in the elevator right after things happened, and all I ever asked him to say was what he did or did not see in that elevator. That's it. Elaine, are you aware that James Franco has said that he saw bruises on Amber Heard that night? What? Camille, objection, calls for hearsay, assumes facts not on evidence, lack of foundation, and it misstates the record. Jen, no ma'am, I am not. Elaine, if James Franco were to tell you that he saw bruises on Amber that night of May 22nd, 2016, would you believe him? Camille, objection, improper hypothetical, assumes facts not on evidence. Jen, yes, I would hope he would tell me the truth, yes. Elaine, well, I'm asking you, would you believe him if he told you that? Camille, lack of relevance. Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, and has James Franco ever told you that he did not see the bruises on Amber's face on May 22nd, 2016? Camille, objection, calls for hearsay. Jen, no ma'am, I have intentionally not asked the question because that's his truth to tell. I can only speak to what Whitney told me. That's the only truth I know. Elaine, isn't it fair to say that you were hoping that James Franco did not see the bruises and that he'd come forward and say that he did not see the bruises? Camille, objection, compound, argumentative. Jen, I'm hoping that somebody involved with this would just tell the truth because all I'm trying to do is make sense of is why I opened my home to someone who told me a completely different narrative than what is being said. Elaine, so given what you say Whitney said to you, then why would it make any difference at all whether there was an evidence to the contrary that Johnny had been beating Amber for a lengthy period of time? Camille, objection, vague, ambiguous. Jen, I don't understand what you're saying. I don't understand that question. I don't understand what you're asking. Elaine, so why would it matter at all to you, given that you were relying so strongly on what you believe Whitney said to you back in 2015 and 2016, whether there was a mountain of evidence that Johnny Depp was beating Amber? Camille. Objection, assumes facts not on evidence, vague and ambiguous. It misstates the witness' prior testimony, improper hypothetical. Jen, I'm sorry, is there a way we can make it bigger? Because I'm trying to look at you so I can follow. I'm looking on this side and I just want to have this big document up. I just can't. I'm trying to follow and I'm not following what you're asking right now. Elaine, what I'm asking, well, let's start with the piece of it, okay? So if James Franco told you he saw the bruises on Amber Heard on May 22nd, 2016, how would that impact you, given that you are so resolute that Whitney told you things in 2015 and 16 that are different? Camille, objection, assumes facts not on evidence, lack of foundation, improper hypothetical. Jen, it wouldn't impact me at all. Elaine, so why bother? Why even bother to ask what everyone else says and what all the other evidence is? Oh my God, why bother? Why bother? Camille, objection, assumes facts not on evidence, misstates the witness testimony, vague and ambiguous, argumentative. Jen, I'm not sure. All I have tried my best to do is tell the truth because I care about the truth, and I can't kind of do that. I do without really believing if you see something that's wrong, not to step up and do something. So whatever James's truth is, and to say it, that's on him. It does not impact me in any way at all. Elaine, but essentially what you're saying, Miss Howell, if I'm understanding this correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that no matter how much evidence there may be that Johnny Depp committed DV on Amber Heard, you will never believe it because of what you believe Whitney Heard told you in the 2015-2016 timeframe. Isn't that correct? Camille, objection, assumes facts not on evidence, misstates the witness testimony, it's argumentative, it's harassment. It's harassment at this point. Jen, that's not correct. Elaine, then where am I wrong on that? Camille, objection, vague and ambiguous. Jen, all I care about is telling the truth and my part of what Whitney said to me. That's it. Whatever the outcome is, it's up to whoever it is. I'm not the judge. I'm not the juror. That's not my place. So I do believe very strongly in coming forward with the truth and doing the right thing. And I do very much care very deeply about that and always have. And so whatever the outcome is, as long as it's the truth, as long as the truth is on the table, I'm fine with. Again, I deeply care for Amber, still do to this day. There is no part of me that doesn't. Elaine, so if you care about the truth, why didn't you read in detail all 585 paragraphs of Injustice Nichols' judgment? Well, I've got an answer for you, Elaine. I don't think you're going to like it. Camille, objection, calls for legal conclusion, assumes facts not on evidence. Jen, I have wasted too much of my time trying to figure this out as it is. I have read, I've understood, I'm doing my part as good citizen, just saying what I know, so there you have it. I don't know what else to say to you. No wonder Jen was so pissed in her deposition. Elaine, if all you care about is what you believe you recall Whitney telling you, then why would you ask James Franco to come forward and say what he saw in the elevator? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not evidence. Jen, because he has shared that he's on a spiritual journey trying to make amends and come forward and be accountable and do what's right in his life. He has shared that with me, and I feel like if it's his evidence that can help move the truth forward in whichever way it goes, we should come forward with that. Elaine, now, you say here, I'm sharing this with you because if you feel compelled to share only what you did or did not see in the elevator that day, you could put an end to all of this. What did you mean by that? Jen, that was said to me. Adam had said that. He was just like, we tried to get James and he was there and he was a witness and we have a time date thing. We don't care about anything else to do with any relationships. If he would just come forward, that would be great because they had whatever footage. Elaine, you've used very specific terms here. You could put an end to all of this. Did you get that from Adam Waldman? Camille, objection, calls for hearsay. Jen, no, I was just writing an email. Elaine, so do you mean that if James Franco said, no, I didn't see the bruises on Amber Heard May 22nd, 2016, then that would somehow exonerate Johnny Depp and everything would be done and the whole case would be over? Camille, objection, misstates the witness testimony, misstates the document. Jen, no, it's not what I meant. Elaine, well, did you mean that if he said, yes, I did see the bruises on Amber's face, that would mean that the judge and all this evidence that was in would be right and they were right to find Mr. Depp had committed at least 10 acts of DV on Amber? Camille, objection, calls for legal conclusion, argumentative, assumes facts not on evidence, calls for hearsay, asked and answered, argumentative. Jen, yeah, I'm going with asked and answered on that myself because I don't know what you're trying to get me to say. I'm being honest here. I asked him to come forward and tell the truth because Vince and I are all very close. We had a business together. I've known James. That's actually how I met Whitney and Amber, was at a Pineapple Express premiere in LA because I was there with him. I've been through many journeys, many ups and downs with him. He has said he's being accountable. That is what I was referring to in this letter. I cannot speak to my language whenever I wrote it. I was just writing it. Elaine. Miss Court Reporter, and forgive me, I forget your name. Oh, you bitch. I think it's like Myrna. Can you reread the question? You know what, Elaine? If you don't know the name, just say, I'm so sorry, I forgot your name. Don't try it. Don't try. Just say, I'm so sorry. I'm not good with names. That's horrible. So the court reporter reread it. Jen, I would no. I mean, no, I would not think that his answer either way would give a final verdict. That's not what I meant in that sentence. So, Elaine, well, what did you mean when you said you could put an end to all of this? Camille, objection, argumentative, asked and answered. Jen, I would say, and again, I wrote this after a message and just was like, I've got to send him an email. I would say for him deliberating about all of this accountability that he has said he's going through. I mean, I'm assuming I'm speaking to that about him coming clean and doing the right thing and stepping up and taking accountability for different things in his life, but I don't know. So, I mean, we can go round and round, but I really don't know how to answer that question. I do not think if he did or did not see bruises that would override a judge. No. Elaine, now, you said that all you care about is the truth. Did you ever ask Amber Heard what happened? Camille, objection, vague and ambiguous. Jen, I would have never ever said what Whitney told to me at all had she not gotten on the stand and said what she did. And when I realized so many things that she said were flipped from what she told me when she lived with me, I was alarmed. So no, I didn't ask Amber because I thought this had been dealt with in the divorce stuff way back when. I had no idea all of this stuff was going to reopen and come back years later. Elaine, so let me ask the question again, because I didn't ask you whether you thought that it was all over in the divorce proceeding. If you're searching for the truth at the end of July and beginning of August of 2020, why didn't you ask Amber Heard? Jen, because I felt if she took her sister over there and put her on the stand and Whitney flipped over every story she told me while she lived with me, that there was a reason she was asking her sister to lie for her on the stand. That is why I did not reach out to Amber. That is why I did not reach out to Whitney. Elaine, so you just assumed that everything was false, regardless of the evidence, of what the evidence was. What evidence, Elaine? What evidence do you speak of? Camille, objection, argumentative, assumes facts not an evidence, misstates witness testimony, it's argumentative. Jen, I did not assume anything other than what Whitney said on the stand was in direct contrast to what she told me for 11 months repeatedly, and she had told me repeatedly while she lived with me that her entire life had been covering up for Amber, living in Amber's shadow repeatedly. And when she had confided all of that in me, I would never come forward and break that confidentiality if she did not get on the stand and do what she told me she had done her entire life, which is cover up for her big sister. Elaine, move to strike. Elaine, all right, I'm going to, Camille, you have no grounds to move that strike. Elaine, non-responsive and hearsay is what I said. Thank you. That's actually fucking not what you said. But anyway, Mr. Sphere, is this a good time, Elaine, to take a break? We've been going, I think, I don't know, an hour and a half, something like that. Yeah, it has been an hour and a half. Elaine, yeah, I can just ask the last question on this one. Mr. Sphere, sure. Elaine, just so we can get this document off, is that okay? Mr. Sphere, of course. Elaine, if you really need it, I'd stop, but Mr. Sphere, no, just whatever is convenient for you. Elaine, all right, thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm going to just direct your attention to after getting brought into this. You didn't get brought into this. You voluntarily inserted yourself into this, didn't you? Camille, objection, assumes facts not evidence, misstates the witness prior testimony, is argumentative, and harassment. Jen, no, I actually very much disagree with your statement and find grave offense to it. Elaine, who brought you into this? Jen, you, as an attorney of law and this entire judicial system, should encourage people to come forward with the truth if they see someone not telling the truth under oath. I believe that that is a moral obligation as a human being. So Whitney saying something different, I open my doors, I open my life, I open my heart. I love that girl with every ounce of my being. Her getting on that stand over there is why I inserted myself, as you so rudely put it. As aggressive as you are, I would think that you would want people to come forward with the truth. In your line of work, that's what I would think, and I would be so disgusted by this entire judicial system. I have no words. So don't attack me for doing what I feel I have a moral obligation to do, which is tell the truth as it was told to me. And the reason I opened my home, my heart, my life to someone I cared about very deeply. So stop attacking me and my character. I am done with it. Oh, bravo. Oh, bravo. Elaine. Elaine, move to strike on hearsay. Oh, for fuck's sakes. Let's go ahead and take a break. I agree with you. Oh, yeah, because you just lost. You just lost, Elaine. Mr. Spears like, yep, that makes sense. So they go off the record, back on the record. Elaine, all right, Alex, can you put 33 back up? I wasn't quite done with it. I just thought we should take a break. No, Elaine, you had to go back and rethink your strategy because your witness ran away from you. She was never in front of you, but she definitely ran away from you. Okay, Miss Elaine, Miss Howell, I think we're talking about Exhibit 33, this letter, this email that you sent to James Franco in August of 2020 when we took the break. I'm just going to go down to the bottom where we're talking. I think we established that you had indicated here that you were getting brought into this, and I think we just finished your testimony on that, and you would agree that you reached out. Someone didn't reach out to you, correct? Jen, yes. Elaine, okay, and then it says, and paying attention to the witness statements and trial transcripts. What about the witness statements and the trial transcripts were you paying attention to? Jen, that was referring to what I was telling you reading, what I was reading about Whitney's statement. That is, and looking at all the information. Elaine, did you review Amber's statement at any time? Jen, I looked them over, yes. Again, the only thing I can speak to of true or not true is Whitney's, as she told me, so I don't know anything beyond that, and that's what I can speak to. Elaine, now you said, I'm deeply ashamed that I took 2 subpoenas to speak the truth. Do you see that? Jen, 100%. Elaine, in fact, it took no subpoenas. You asked for a subpoena and you got 2 copies of it. When you reached out yourself to Christy Dombrowski, she asked if you would talk to Adam Waldman. You told him you would like a subpoena, correct? Jen, yes. Camille, objection. Ms. Howell, I'm still here with the objections. Sorry. Okay, that's okay. So trust. Oh God, look at this. Sorry, I just skipped over it. So Camille says, objection, Ms. Howell, I'm still here with the objections. Jen said, I'm sorry. Camille said, that's okay. So am I. Trust me. So Camille goes on, assumes facts not on evidence, misstates the witness testimony, calls for hearsay, compound, begging, and ambiguous. Jen, yes, I'm still ashamed that I even asked for a subpoena. I should have just come forward and told the truth. And I asked for it because I said I would do it if I was subpoenaed. That way I asked for it. Elaine, in fact, the reality is that you came forward because you saw the opportunity with Whitney saying that she was sleeping at her boss's house as an opportunity for you to get your 15 minutes of fame out of this big trial of the center in the UK, didn't you? Is that your fucking go-to, Elaine? Is it? Because I gotta say, I think this was your 15 minutes of fame and you crashed and burned. I have no time for this woman. Absolutely none. Anyone that comes against her client saying that, you know what, no, what your client just said isn't true. They're like, well, you're just here for your 15 minutes. Bitch, your client ain't that famous, okay? She ain't. We move forward. Whew, I'm pissed. All right. Camille, objection. Assume facts not on evidence. Misstates the witness testimony. Is argumentative, rude, and harassment. Jen, no. The connections Jen has, I'm just going to say this, the connections Jen has within Art of Elysium reach much further than Amber ever could, I feel. She just has connections far and wide, and she's obviously very quiet about it. Fucking James Franco lived with her for a year. So Amber needs to have all of her stuff out there. Jen is very this is just my life. And these are just people who have different jobs. They have just more of a public profile than the rest of us. That's it. They just have different jobs. They are not special. They are not unique. They just have a different job. Hear that, Amber? You had a different job, right? You had. Elaine, now that you knew the declaration that Adam Waldman prepared for you was not filed in the Commonwealth of Virginia in this case, didn't you? Camille, objection, assumes facts not on evidence, calls for legal conclusion, calls for speculation. Jen, I do not understand the question. I thought the declaration was given for everything. Elaine, what did Mr. Waldman tell you he was going to do with the declaration? Camille, objection, calls for hearsay. Jen, try to get it submitted into the UK. Elaine, and why did he tell you? I'm sorry, I missed the last part. I honestly can't say technically, but my understanding was that I was given the declaration and they were trying to submit it into the UK. Elaine, and that's what Adam Waldman told you? Camille, objection, calls for hearsay. Jen, something to that effect. I cannot go verbatim, but that was my understanding of how it was explained to me. Elaine, all right. And just so it's clear, were your communications with Adam Waldman, or were you talking to someone else as well as Mr. Waldman about the declaration? Jen, the declaration? It's just Adam. Elaine, Adam Waldman? Jen, yeah. Elaine, okay, I'm going to jump back to the check for a moment. Oh, for fuck's sakes. Jen's like, all right. Elaine, did you ever give Amber Heard? Did you list Amber Heard as a donor of your tax returns that year, or did you list someone else? Jen, I don't have those in front of me. I would say it's probably listed as an anonymous donation since that's how they asked for it to be tagged. It might have said in the honor of Amber. I'm not sure how they filed that, but it was an anonymous donation. Elaine, now that you were asked for your tax returns from 2016 up through the present, and you only provided ones for 2016, is there a reason why you didn't give any others? Jen, no ma'am, sorry, that was understood that way. I gave the link to our website where all of them live. We have not filed 2020 yet, but everything is up there from 1997 till 2019. Elaine, who did you give the link to? Jen, the link that you're referring to should take you in the documents. It should take you to our website. Elaine, we don't have that link. We've got the documents. So who did you give the link to? Jen, it's in this stuff that I gave to my attorney. Elaine, Mr. Sphere, I would just say, Mr. Sphere, I would like to say we only received the 2016. Actually, they refer to 2015. Mr. Sphere, yeah, two things. One, the link was provided to counsel for Mr. Depp, who we provided all of the documents to originally, number one. Number two, it's all publicly available. You simply need to go to the Art's website. You can pull every tax return down. And we also advised, at least Mr. Depp's counsel, that was the way to access the information should anyone find it useful. Elaine, so I'm going to ask you under oath, Ms. Howell, did you list as the donor on your tax returns for the $250K donation that was received in January of 2018? Oh, God. Jen, I don't know. I don't have that in front of me. And we have accountants who prepare those documents, so I don't know off the top of my head. And sorry, I did not realize that I was speaking to the charity stuff today, as I mentioned before, or I would have been a little better prepared for that. Elaine, so I'm going to ask you to take you to look at, Elaine, Alex, if you can bring up number 32. I'm going to ask you to take a look at what's been marked as deposition exhibit number 32. Again, it's the camera from the elevator in the ECB. And Alex, I'm going to ask you to fast forward, if you could, to 2256 near the end, 5650, and then start from there. Elaine, this is on May 22nd, 2016. Do you recognize that as Amber Heard? Jen, Elaine, is that a yes? I'm sorry. Jen, yes, I do. Elaine, for the court reporter. Jen, sorry. Elaine, do you recognize that gentleman? Jen, I do. Elaine, who is that? Jen, that's James. Elaine, James Franco? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, all right, you can go stop it now, Alex. Would you say that there was somewhat of an intimate gesture between the two of them when... Oh, and then Elaine cut her off. Objection, vague, ambiguous. Sorry, Elaine. Sorry. Elaine, would you say that there was somewhat of an intimate gesture between the two of them when Mr. Franco laid his head on Amber's shoulders? Camille, objection, calls for hearsay and assumes it was vague and ambiguous. Elaine, you need to answer again. Sorry. Jen, yes, ma'am. Sorry, I'm trying to follow. Yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay. And would that type of intimate gesture be more likely to take place if he had seen bruises on Amber's face? Who the fuck knows, Elaine? Camille, objection, calls for speculation, assumes facts and on evidence, is an improper hypothetical, is vague and ambiguous. Jen, I have no idea if that would be more intimate or not. No, ma'am. Elaine, have you ever seen this video before? Jen, yes, ma'am, I have. Elaine, when did you see it? Jen, I mean, it's all over the internet, so I'm not sure. Elaine, did you look at it on the internet or did someone show it to you? Jen, I looked at it on the internet. Elaine, when's the first time you can recall looking at it on the internet? Oh, Jen, I have no idea, honestly. Elaine, was it after the trial? Camille, objection, vague and ambiguous. Jen, I do not recall. Elaine, do you recall whether it was before or after you sent the email to James Franco? Jen, before. That's how I knew he could know if anything was there or not. Elaine, now, one of the things you had indicated in your declaration and your witness statement is that Whitney Heard told you that Amber cut off Johnny's finger when they were in Australia. Do you recall that? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay, now first, you were confused about when that was, and then you corrected that in your witness statement to the UK in support of the appeal. Do you correct that? Do you recall that? I'm sorry. Camille, objection, assumes facts and non-evidence, calls for legal conclusion, calls for hearsay. Jen, if you say so, I honestly don't. I don't recall, but yeah. Elaine, so did Whitney Heard tell you that Amber Heard cut off Johnny Depp's finger in Australia? Jen, we were sitting in the office. I was on the computer, but the computer, a few computers before this one at my desk. She was sitting in the black and white chairs next to the kitchen. There are 2 chairs there, if I'm not mistaken. She was wearing a long black skirt because I was very much into my work, and she jumped up and proclaimed she got some text and was like, oh my God, she's gone and done it now. And she was very loud in the office too. It was out loud in the office to whoever was in the office at that time. So I rolled my chair back and turned around and was like, what are you talking about, Elaine? And what did she say? Jen. And she was like, I've got to respond. She had the phone in her hand. She was texting someone. She walked out. There was a door to the left. She walked out. She was kind of in a state of panic. And then she was outside dealing with it. Elaine. So who did she text? Did she tell you who she was texting with? Jen, it was someone, I would probably say Kevin, because that's who I remember her kind of going back and forth with on communication at that time. But I could be wrong. It was someone from his team who had reached out to her, I guess I'm assuming, from Australia. That's when she said, that's all I can say. I mean, I don't know. I didn't look at the text. I was shocked. It was like one of the alarming things. Elaine, Alex, can you take down through 32? I don't think we need it anymore. Elaine, so let me just be sure I understand exactly what you don't know who Whitney was texting with, correct? Jen, again, if I had to take a guess, it would be Kevin, but I do not know for sure. So no. Elaine, so we're just going to make it clear. You don't know. I don't know. I don't want you to guess. You do not know who Whitney was texting with. And so Jen said no. And Elaine, and Whitney said, oh my God. Jen, yeah, I mean, it was a loud proclamation to the effect of, she's gone and done it now. She's cut off his fucking finger. Elaine, okay, now. Jen, it was very loud. And a lot of these things were said very regularly in the office. And that's where we were hearing all of it. And I have never not said that it's not everything I know is coming from Whitney. It's just what she has said on the stand is different than what she's saying. That's all I can speak to from an evidential point. Elaine. So let's just say there for a minute. So you have Whitney Heard texting with someone who apparently, and you don't know who it is, who apparently said something that led Whitney to believe that Amber had cut off Johnny's finger, correct? Camille, objection, misstates the testimony, assumes facts and non-evidence, calls for Elaine. Is that correct? Jen, yes, ma'am. Jen, I was trying to place everything together between the dogs when they came to the office, and that's how I started putting together a timeline. I would say March-ish, but I'm not, again, I don't have that in front of me. The dogs came whenever they came back from Australia, so that's how I've been trying to piece together what was said when. Elaine, you pieced together with the dogs? Is that the dog incident in Australia? Jen, yes. Whenever they were flown back privately, they were coming in the office every day. Elaine, so it is your understanding that the finger incident happened at the same time as the dog incident in which the dogs were illegally in Australia? Jen, I believe it was before that. Elaine, all right. Jen, and that's where I was trying to come up with the timeline. And there was so much that was said in that time. It was constant. So that's where I always said on dates, I'm just trying to be honest and give you what I know as possibly as I can. So I don't know the exact date. Elaine, so March of what year? Jen, it would be 2015. Elaine, okay, now you also said that Whitney gave you a blow-by-blow of how the finger was cut off. Do you recall saying that? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, so tell me exactly what Whitney said in a blow-by-blow of how Amber cut off Johnny's finger. Jen, she came back from wherever she was talking to out in the hall. She was still very upset, and she was like, she apparently threw a bottle, his fingers off, and they rushed him out. She was in kind of a state of panic, to be honest with you, because she was so upset and didn't know what to do. And yeah, I mean, that would be what I'm saying, the blow-by-blow that I was referring to. Elaine, so she said, I just want to make sure I've got exactly what you recall Whitney saying. So she said apparently she threw a bottle. Jen, there was no verbal response. Elaine, what else? Jen, and then she cut off his finger. And that, I believe, whenever she came in, was made to say she came in and she was very upset. And I was like, she cut his finger off with a knife. What, with a knife? She was like, no, she threw a bottle at him. There was apparently some big blowout. I don't know. They were texting her. She was pretty upset, Elaine. And then she said they whisked him out. Jen, yes, ma'am. I believe that those were the words. I don't want to say whisked exactly, but that they took him out, and that Amber, I think they wanted her to call Amber, or that they had Amber somewhere else. She was going back and forth with what to do. Elaine, so Whitney was reporting to you that based on the text message that she had with the person you don't know, correct? Jen, Elaine, you have to say yes. Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay. And that whoever that was telling Whitney they wanted her to speak with Amber, is that, Jen, to calm Amber down? And I don't know if they were asking her to text her or call her, but they said they were trying to calm her down. Elaine, okay. Now you're aware that Johnny Depp texted 2 different people during that incident and told them he cut his finger off. Jen, no. Camille, objection, assumes Miss Howell. Jen, I'm sorry? Camille, it assumes facts, not on evidence, misstates the records, calls for hearsay. Jen, no, ma'am. Elaine, okay. Did Whitney ever tell you anything further about the finger incident, including whatever the evidence was, what people said, where the finger was found, anything? Jen, I'm not sure she talked to me about it because there was multiple conversations, but I don't know. It was between her communicating with them and them communicating back to the office, basically. Elaine, do you recall anything else other than what you've been told about Whitney saying that Amber cut off Johnny's finger? Jen, no, ma'am, just what I've shared. Elaine, so did Whitney ever tell you that Amber said she cut off Johnny Depp's finger? Jen, no, ma'am. Elaine, so the best information you have is Whitney testing with someone who was in Australia saying that, correct? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, so do you know whether anyone was in the house at the time Johnny Depp cut off his finger? Camille, objection, assumes fact, not on evidence, calls for speculation. Jen, no, ma'am. Elaine, so do you know whether the person who was texting with Whitney was telling her firsthand of what they thought or might have heard from someone else? Camille, objection, compound, calls for speculation, calls for hearsay. Jen, the way it was told to me, I assumed it was firsthand, but I do not know. Elaine, okay, and we have exhausted your recollection about the cutting of the finger in Australia? Jen, yes, ma'am. My entire brain's exhausted in general, so yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay. Now, you also said there was an incident in which Whitney said that Amber threw a glass of wine at her, correct? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, and that was at the Tribeca Film Festival? Jen, I believe so. Yes, ma'am. Elaine, and do you recall which film was being presented at the Tribeca Film Festival? Jen, I believe it was The Adderall Diaries, ma'am. Elaine, which was James Franco with Amber, correct? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay, and what is exactly that you recall Whitney saying? Jen, she came back to the office. She often sat in the chairs that I'm telling you about, the black and white ones by the kitchen, and she came back and she said that she and Amber had gotten into a huge fight and Amber threw a full glass of red wine at her in an elevator. Elaine, and when did Whitney tell you that? Jen, it was, I believe, April-ish of that year. So usually whenever Tribeca is. So I'm assuming it's around that time. Elaine, do you recall what year? Jen, it would be 2015 as well. Elaine, okay. And did Whitney tell you anything else about that argument other than that Amber threw a glass of red wine at her? Jen, no, ma'am. Elaine, do you know what the fight was about? Jen, I'm sure she told me at the time, but I do not recall. I just remember her telling me about the glass being thrown, that she was always talking about them fighting, and I don't know what that incident was. Elaine, do you recall whether there was anyone else in the elevator with them at that time? Jen, I did not ask. No, ma'am. Elaine, do you recall whether anyone got wine on them as a result of that? Jen, no, ma'am. Elaine, okay. Now you said she was talking about them fighting. They're sisters, right? Jen, uh-huh. Elaine, do you have sisters? Jen, oh yeah, 100%. Elaine, how many sisters do you have? Jen, 2. Elaine, and how close in age range are they to you? Jen, I think the closest one's 6 years, the youngest is 20 years. Woo, 20 years difference. Elaine, so you don't have a relationship that's roughly a year and a half apart like Amber and Whitney do? Jen, no, ma'am. Elaine, so do you have experiences with close siblings, particularly girls, and the kinds of fights that they can get in and then be best friends 3 minutes later? Camille, objection, irrelevant, calls for speculation, improper, hypothetical. Jen, no, ma'am. I guess no. No, ma'am. Elaine, all right. And so when Whitney's telling you about all of these fights she has had with Amber, you're really not in a position to be able to judge whether these are typical fights that close sisters get into or something else, correct? Camille, objection, misstates the witness testimony. It's an improper hypothetical. Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, yes, in what way? Jen, I'm sorry. I just said yes, ma'am. What was the last question? Elaine, are you able to discern whether these are just typical close sister fights that happen with close-age sisters? Jen, I don't really know how to answer that. She was confiding in me as a friend and talking to me about her personal relationship. And I do not have anyone I do not have anyone a year and a half in age to me, so I guess that's your point. Elaine, all right. Did Whitney ever tell you that she had been beaten by Amber? Jen, I mean, yes, would be the short answer of that. Elaine, all right, let's hear when specifically. All right, let's hear this. Jen, the way the stories went was that it was her whole life. I can't give you specifics because, again, she was confiding in me while she lived there, and I listened. And I do understand sibling relationship because with me, seemed very extreme based on any experience I've had in any friendships or relationships I have. Elaine, all right, I want you to tell me exactly what was said by Whitney when you considered it to be extreme, including what the circumstances were, the best you can recall. Jen, growing up, she said that they were both pretty severely abused and that Amber would take the brunt of it on her behalf and that she would always appreciate that. And that where she would take the brunt of it, that when she got mad, that I'm trying to articulate it the best in the kindest way I can because I have a deep sympathy for both of them from what Whitney shared with me. That their childhood was extremely abusive, and where Amber would take up for it in those abusive situations that happened to them, that she would also then turn and direct her rage on Whitney later. That's how she told me in ways. That's the best way I can communicate it. Elaine, so exactly what words did Whitney use to describe how Amber directed that rage onto Whitney? Jen, I mean, this was however long ago. She lived with me for 11 months, and it was one story after the next. While she was there, she just kind of opened up to me. So I'm giving you a vast generalization of all the stories because I never knew that however many years later, I would have to ever disclose any of this or share any of this. Elaine, can you remember any specifics that Whitney told you about Amber turning any type of rage on her? Jen, I don't. I mean, I don't want to misstate specific incidences, stuff that happened with the kids in high school on up. She said that it had happened throughout her entire life. So I don't know how much detail you want because it was almost like therapy sessions, if that makes sense. Elaine, I didn't realize she wasn't done. So she just told her to keep going. So Jen kept going. The only way I can convey what was shared at that time, it was like a therapy sessions. And it was stuff like how I just told you, it was the whole childhood was abusive. I felt as much as she protected me and her as my protector, who I love so much for doing that. And then she would kind of turn and do the same thing to me that she was taking for me. And so, Elaine, what? Jen, they were not specific incidences, if that makes sense. It's like how you talk about things that happen throughout your life in this overarching way. Elaine, can you describe for me any specific thing that Whitney said Amber did to her that represented turning rage onto Whitney? Jen, no. Elaine, okay, now I'm going to ask you to turn to exhibit number 35. And before I go to it, do you have any recollection of Amber dating Elon Musk? Jen, just from what Whitney told me. Elaine, all right. Now, Adam Waldman asked you about Elon Musk, didn't he? Camille, objection, calls for hearsay. Jen, yes. Elaine, and what did he ask you? Jen, I'm not exactly sure. Something that brought him up. I honestly don't know the exact question. I couldn't tell the exact questions you've asked me today. Elaine, so Adam brought up Elon Musk in his discussions with you, correct? Camille, objection, calls for hearsay. Jen, yes. Elaine, okay. Do you have a recollection of what Adam Waldman said about Elon Musk? Elaine, objection, asked and answered, calls for hearsay. Jen, I do not recall. Elaine, did you have any understanding of why Johnny Depp or Adam Waldman seemed to be so preoccupied or obsessed with Elon Musk? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not evidence, calls for hearsay, compound, vague, and ambiguous. Jen, no ma'am. Elaine, but Mr. Waldman included in your declaration things about Elon Musk, didn't he? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not evidence, calls for hearsay. Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay. And those things that he had included in there, he claimed that Paige Heard had said to you, correct? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not evidence. Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, but you didn't volunteer to Adam Waldman anything that Paige Heard said about Elon Musk, did you? Jen, I told him the only thing that I knew about Elon Musk, which was shared with Paige and Whitney while I was visiting Hunter for the first time. And I stated whenever I said it, this is an outrageous story, but this is what I was told. This is really all I know about Elon Musk, and that's it. That's why I said that. Elaine, and that was in response to Adam Waldman's questions to you, correct? Camille, objection, assumes facts, not on evidence. Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, and you know that Paige Heard had died at the time of this, that you told things to Adam Waldman that she allegedly said, correct? Jen, yes, ma'am. And Whitney was there. Whitney also said, was part of the conversation as well. Elaine, didn't you say that in the declaration though? Did you say Paige? Oh, Elaine, you just said it was Paige Heard, correct? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay. Now, were you aware that Amber Heard and Elon Musk had broken up as of the time of Amber Heard gave you the $250K contribution in Camille? Objection, assumes facts. I'm sorry, Elaine. I apologize. January of 2018, and Elaine goes on. Then Camille jumps in. Objection, assumes facts, not on evidence, calls for hearsay. Jen, no, ma'am. I do not recall. I had no idea if they were dating or not. I believe they were. Stevie and I did a timeline on this. Elaine, now there's one more thing that you reported in your declaration and your witness statement. You said that Whitney told you that Amber had struck Johnny and that Whitney tried to interfere in some manner. Do you remember that? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, tell me when Whitney told you that. Jen, this was where I was trying to put that together. When she came to stay with me, that she said that she was one of the main incidences. She said she had gone up. She was, according to her recollection of the stairs incident, she was running up the stairs behind them and trying to stop Amber from attacking Johnny. Amber pushed her down the stairs, according to her, and she said that if the security guard hadn't been there, she would have probably fallen all the way down. Elaine, when was this? Jen, I'm not sure. Sometimes March, April, or May. And that's where I said to Adam, I'm not sure if she came to stay with me and then went back to live with them and then came back again in May or not, because I was traveling during that time as well. But whenever she came to stay, she did go back down there and so that's where I don't know the dates of the incidences. I'm assuming, yeah. It was all literally, it was chaos in the office. It's truly the truth. All of these stories were coming out. It was constant with Whitney sharing all of this stuff to the point I was gravely concerned about her. Elaine, well, I moved to strike the rest of that. Elaine goes on, I want to stay on what Whitney told you about the stairs incident. Now, she said she was running up the stairs trying to stop Amber from hitting Johnny. Jen, attacking Johnny. Attacking was the word she used. Elaine, and what, if anything, did Whitney tell you what was going on to lead the argument between Amber and Johnny? Jen, nothing. Elaine, she said nothing? She just said I was running up the stairs to try and stop Amber from attacking Johnny, and I thought I was going to fall down the stairs till the security guard stopped? Camille, objection, misstates the witness testimony. Well, yeah, because you forgot to say at the top of the flight of the stairs, Elaine. You forgot. You said it wrong. Elaine, did she say anything but anything on top of that? Was there anything else, or was it just that? Camille, objection, misstates the witness testimony. Jen, I do not recall. Elaine, have you ever read in any of the UK testimony what the testimony was about the incident in which Amber hit Johnny Depp? Jen, oh yeah, yes ma'am, I know what you're referring to. Yes ma'am. Elaine, and were you aware that the testimony, I'm sorry, Jen, that is why I was like, this is crazy. Why is she flipping these stories? That was the biggest thing where I was just like, this doesn't make sense. Why is Whitney doing this? Elaine, and can you recall at all when this statement was made to you by Whitney? Jen, I'm telling you, March, April, May of 2015. That is whenever it seemed just the utter kind of aspect, apex to it. Elaine, that's all you can recall? Jen, when she came to live with me in May, it seemed to calm down because she was away from it. Elaine, that's not what I asked. I'm asking your best recollection of when Whitney told you what had happened. Told you that had happened. Camille, objection, asked and answered. Jen, yeah, March, April, May. Elaine, that's the best you can do? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay, did Whitney say whether Amber actually hit Johnny Depp? Jen, she said she was attacking him and that's how she pushed her down. So I'm assuming by attack, that's what you meant? Elaine, you're assuming, but you don't know whether Amber actually was successful in even hitting Mr. Depp. Is that correct? Camille, objection, misstates the witness testimony. She's made it clear, attacking. Jen, attacking, that's all I can say. No, I don't know. Elaine, okay, thank you. All right, let's start with these exhibits. Camille, Elaine, before we go on, Miss Johnson, how much time is left on the tape? We're at 2:44. Camille, thank you. Elaine, excuse me, thank you. All right, let's go to exhibit 35. I think, Alex, I had asked you to pull that up and then we stopped for a minute. Elaine goes on, I'm going to ask you to take a look at exhibit number 35, and this is the text message exchange between you and Amber. Do you see that? On February 22nd, 2016. Jen's like, uh-huh. Elaine, is that a yes? I'm sorry. Jen, oh, yes, ma'am. Sorry. Elaine, okay. And Amber's telling you, sorry, I've been dealing with some shit and I have flown Mama Heard into town. She's landing any minute now. Can we maybe have a rain check for later this week? Did you see that? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, and then you responded, of course I just want to see you. I'm always here for you when you are dealing with shit. Well, what, if any, understanding did you have of what shit Amber was dealing with? Jen, at that point, I was just quoting her from her above text. Elaine, all right. And then you say, I hope you know that you can always lean on me if you need anything. I love you. Did you say that? Jen, yes. Amber must have been exhausting. Absolutely exhausting as a friend. As soon as you say you can lean on me anytime, oh my God, that opens up a door for people like Amber. It really does. Elaine, and this is after Whitney has told you all of these things about Amber, correct? Camille, objection, vague and ambiguous as to all these things. It's compound, calls for hearsay. Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay. And then Amber says, thank you so much, babe. And thank you again for the incredible and heartfelt things you said in the character statement. You have no idea how much that warmed my heart. I don't know how I'll ever be able to thank you for that. It truly meant the world to me. Love you, babe. And you said, I love you dearly and I'm here for you always. I just need to see more of you. Do you see that? Jen's like, yes, ma'am. Elaine, and you said this all after Whitney had told you all of these things about Amber that you're reporting now, correct? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay, let's go to the statement. I'll ask you to bring up 43. Jen, real quick, I would like to add to my thing. They had reconciled at this point, and Amber and Whitney were seeing each other, I believe, on pretty regular basis at this point. And when you say I don't understand sibling relationships, I do. And that's why I kind of thought it's fine. They're back together. They're sisters. Things happen. Elaine, move to strike as non-responsive as hearsay. Okay, let's go to exhibit number 43. This is dated February 1st, 2016. Do you see that? Jen's like, uh-huh. Elaine, and this is a witness statement that Amber's referring to that you provided for her, correct? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay, and again, this is after all the things that Whitney has told you that you've relayed to us, correct? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, all right. And you say in there that Amber is let me just get that. Amber is a walking example of selflessness and giving. You said that. Is that correct? Jen, yes, ma'am. Wow. Elaine, okay. And you talk about all her participation and everything else, and you're giving a character statement of her to a court in Australia, correct? Jen, yes, ma'am. Oh, I bet you she's regretting that right now. Elaine, all right. Were those things true when you said them? Jen, yes, ma'am. Camille, objection, calls for hearsay. The document speaks for itself. Elaine, and when you wrote them, you believed you were telling the truth, correct? Jen, yes, ma'am. For what she did to the charity and volunteering, yes, ma'am. This is separate than her family dynamic and what Whitney shared with me. Elaine, all right, let's go to exhibit number 36. This is dated April of 2016. And Amber says, oh my God, even though I pled guilty, she said that because of my character references, it was clear that I wasn't just a celebrity looking for special treatment. As the prosecution said, yada, yada, so she cleared me. I just have to have good behavior for a month and my record will be cleared. No felonies unless I get arrested in the next month. Now, you were, by the way, you recognize this text message? Jen's like, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay. And then you respond, I will always vouch for you and your character. Do you see that? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, so that's how you characterize that letter, that declaration or the letter of recommendation statement on her behalf at that time, correct? Jen, yes, ma'am. Oh, Jen is a better human than I am. She really is. My hat goes to Jen. Elaine, okay, we can take that one down. Let's go to number 37. And this one is on April 18th of 2000. Oh, no, 30. Maybe it was 38. Did I just do 37? Are we there, Alex? Oh, God. Elaine, what is this one? Is this one 30? I can't see the bottom. Oh, my God, they're trying to fucking figure out what it is. All right, let's go. Okay, Elaine, all right. And this is another text message the next day, April 19th, 2016. And she is thanking you again. And you say, you are my chosen family, and I will always be there to help you, love you, celebrate with you, cry with you, whatever you need. Do you recall saying that at that time? It's like, yes, ma'am. Elaine, and again, this is after everything that Whitney Heard had told you that you've since reported in declaration and witness statements, correct? Camille, objection, assumes facts not in evidence, it's compound. Jen, yes, ma'am, chosen family. That word in particular comes from Whitney calling me chosen sister. Elaine, okay. Jen, and whenever they were getting along, I was there. And again, their family business was their business. And what she did for the charity and everything else, I mean, I still love Amber. I mean, I really do. Elaine, I'm going to move to strike as non-responsive to the last part of that. Jen's like, sure. Elaine, let's go to number 38. Now, you were testifying earlier that you thought that Amber had dealt with everything through the divorce. Who told you that? Camille, objection, misstates the witness prior testimony, lack of foundation. Jen, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're asking me. Elaine, that's fair. Earlier, you said that you understood that essentially Amber's allegations of DV against Johnny Depp had all been resolved through the divorce, the settlement, the NDA. Do you recall that testimony? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, who told you that? Jen, Whitney told me that. Camille, objection, calls for hearsay. Jen, Whitney told me that. Elaine, when did Whitney tell you that? Jen, I cannot tell you the date. I do not recall, but it was Whitney who it came from. Elaine, okay, so did you understand that Johnny Depp was suing the son and Mr. Wooten because they called him a wife beater? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, and did you understand that meant that the son and Mr. Wooten in defending were required to prove that in fact he was a wife beater? Camille, objection, calls for legal conclusion, assumes facts not on evidence, vague and ambiguous, calls for hearsay. Jen, again, I'm going to say the same thing. I keep saying that you keep striking. When Whitney got up and flipped all the stories she said to me, that is all I was coming forward with. So I don't know what I did or did not understand. I was shocked at the level of what she told me versus what she said on the stand. So strike it, do whatever. But can we please just move on? Elaine, moves to strike as non-responsive as hearsay, and let me try that question again. Do you understand that it was the son and Mr. Wooten, in order to defend against Mr. Depp's lawsuit, that they had to present proof that he was a wife beater? Camille, calls for hearsay, calls for legal conclusion, asked and answered. Jen, no. Elaine, you didn't understand that? Jen, no. Camille, asked and answered. Elaine, okay. Do you understand that Mr. Depp has brought a lawsuit against Amber Heard in Virginia in the United States, claiming that she defamed him by saying that she was a victim of DV? Camille, objection, calls for legal conclusion. Jen, yes. Elaine, and do you understand that requires Amber Heard to be able to prove that she was the victim of DV? Camille, objection, calls for hearsay, calls for legal conclusion. Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, and do you have any personal knowledge of whether Amber Heard was the victim of DV at the hands of Johnny Depp? Camille, objection, calls for a conclusion, calls for speculation. Jen, no. Again, all I have is what Whitney said to me and saw and what she said on the stand. So that's all I have. That's all I'm trying to do. Elaine, right. And that and everything that Whitney said to you doesn't mean that Amber Heard was not the victim of DV by Johnny Depp. Would you agree? Camille, objection, assumes facts not on evidence, calls for conclusion. It's argumentative. Jen, yes. Elaine, thank you. All right, let's go to Exhibit 38 in front of us, and that is August 18th, 2016. After the divorce and the settlement, there was issues of Amber Heard making pledges to certain charities. Do you recall that? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, yeah, and she pledges to Children's Hospital and the American Civil Liberties Union, but she did not make any pledges to the Art of Elysium, correct? Camille. Objection, assumes facts not in evidence, misstates the record. They were not pledges, they were donations. Elaine, do you remember my question? Jen, yes, ma'am, and my answer is yes. Elaine, okay, thank you. And you were not upset that Amber did not include you in the pledge that she made, correct? Jen, yeah. Camille, objection, misstates the record, assumes facts not in evidence. Jen, yes. Elaine, okay. And then after this time, Amber provided a donation of $250K, right? Camille, objection, misstates the record, assumes facts not in evidence, calls for hearsay, and misstates the witness's testimony. Jen, yeah. Elaine, okay. Let's go with Exhibit 40. Now, this is dated. I'm going to ask you to take a look at Exhibit 40. This is dated April 22nd, 2018. This is yet another text exchange between the two of you. And Amber is telling you how touched she is by your thoughtful, beautiful, amazingly gorgeous gift. Do you have a recollection of what you gave Amber for her birthday? Jen, yes, I gave her a print by Russell Young. Elaine, and she said, I consider you like a sister to me. I love you. Do you see that? Jen, yes. Elaine, and you responded, I love you so much and consider you for my forever sister. And I'm so glad you were born. I can't wait to keep celebrating with you. Do you see that? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay. And again, this is after all the statements that Whitney Heard has made to you that you've reported in the declaration that the witness's statement, correct? Jen, yes. Elaine, okay, let's go to Exhibit 41. I'm going to ask you to take a look at Exhibit 41. Now, this is September of 2018. This is an email exchange between the two of you, and Amber starts off and says, I'm here in New York for UN General Assembly. Been spending a lot of time with some incredibly powerful and inspiring women. Obviously feeling dismayed, as I'm sure you are, watching the events as they have played out over the past week. I'm reaching out because there has been a need for us to take action and prevent the course of history from spiraling in the direction it's rapidly heading. We've never had so much at stake, so I'm trying to find other women like us who are aware about how vulnerable we are to inheriting a world for our daughters so much worse than the one we were born into. I'm looking for every like-minded woman who cares about the world that they're going to leave for our daughters and sisters, and looking for help we can get. And you respond, I am 100% in to do whatever necessary to change the direction of things. I'm in it for whatever you want to do. I am so disgusted by all of this. Happy to hop on a plane to New York City or anything else. I miss you and love you so very much. What are you talking about there? Jen, there was some political cause. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I'm assuming all the women's movements, the women's marches, and the things that were going on then. Elaine, and were you disgusted by it? And what were you disgusted about? Sorry. Jen, by everything going on politically in the world. Elaine, you were disgusted about any political issues relating to how women were treated. Jen, yeah, it was in the midst of the women's movement. I still very much am. Elaine, okay. And would you agree that some of the issues that was the Me Too movement at this point? Jen, I'm not sure if it was the Me Too movement. I don't believe that's what it was in regards with, but I do not recall. Elaine, do you recall whether it was about women being able to speak out about victims of SV or DV? Camille, objection, asked and answered. Jen, I do not recall. Elaine, okay. And then when you said, I've had an idea for a while to start a political group for women that can lobby, bring strong women together, and have an actual plan of action to move forward, I would love to do it with you. Do you see that? Jen, I know what that was. Sorry, I had not seen this. So I had no idea. It was inequality for women. It was all about women's equality issues. And that's what it was. It was like, how can we move for getting equal, like equal pay, equal everything? It was all about women's rights. Elaine, all right. And then Amber gives you some different, parts of this with senators, etc. And you say, I'm going to go through my database and see who I've got in those specific states and who can help in general. I'm really proud of you for rolling up your sleeves and getting in there. Do you see that? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay. Did you take action? Did you go through with your database and see if you could help out? Jen, I do. I can't remember who. I think I sent her some names. I'm not sure. I know I looked into it after we got off. I can't remember. Elaine, okay. And you said, do you have a link for people to donate money if they want to? I'm going to reach out to my college too and see if they have those who they have in those particular states. Do you recall whether you did that? Jen, yes. I actually called the alumni group at Emerson, and they were doing their own whatchamajig with the students. They had something going on there. Elaine, all right. Jen went on. It was after the election. Was it maybe midterms? I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but I don't think I ever got the link, but I was going to send it out to people. Elaine, all right, I'm going to ask you to go to Exhibit 42. And this is dated January 3rd, 2019, and it's an email exchange between the two of you. Jen's like, uh-huh. Elaine, and you were talking about Heaven, and Heaven is your annual event, correct? That's in January or of every year? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, and it's tied to the globe, correct? Jen, it's every year until this year and has been held the night before the Golden Globes. Yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay, that way you can maximize, hopefully, your celebrities in town, right, to come to this? Jen, the first year we did it, it actually happened to be the year that it was a writer's strike, so that's why we just always kept it there. Elaine, all right, but it's your biggest fundraising event every year, correct? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, and Amber made it to almost all of those, didn't she? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, and she made a huge effort to go to those, didn't she? Jen, so much press for us and volunteered. Yes, ma'am. Elaine, and in fact, she went. You asked her to go to it in 2020 as well, did you not? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, and it wasn't held in 2021 because of COVID, right? Jen, it has not been held yet. We are holding it. Elaine, and I'm going to just ask you to take a look at the end of this particular one. Elaine, Alex, thank you very much. It says at the end of it, I love you and respect you beyond and want time with you and want us to put our minds together and change this freaking world. There is no one I would rather do that with than you. Would you agree that was your sentiments with respect to Amber Heard? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay. And you also bestowed an award on Amber Heard on behalf of the Art of Elysium, did you not? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, and what was that award? Jen, Spirit of Elysium Award for her volunteering with the charity. Elaine, I'm going to have you look at one more exhibit and then I'll save the rest of my time for rebuttal. Elaine, but if you could go to exhibit number 54, she got all fucking confused. Miss Howell, I'm just going to ask you to take a look at exhibit number 53. This is the tax return that we talked about earlier. The one that was produced in Discovery is 2015, correct? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, all right, and this reflects the annual income. This was obviously back in 2015, but it's about 1.4 million in contributions and grants. Is that correct? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, all right, and then if we go down a bit more, we have a lot of different deductions and everything else, and then we go to, this is where they list all the donors. Do you see that? Jen says, I do. Elaine, and do you recall how much James Franco gave that year? Jen, I do not. Elaine, okay, I'm trying to control this thing a little bit. Okay, but do you recall how much Johnny Depp gave that year? Jen, I only had to pull it whenever I was asked, so I believe he gave $25,000 donation. That was the year Amber was honored, I believe. Elaine, and has Johnny Depp ever given a donation to the Art of Elysium since that time? Jen, he did a concert that we got the money from, but they made the donation on that behalf. So no, he's not a donor. Elaine, okay. And this also includes all of the expenses that Art of Elysium has, correct? Jen, yes, ma'am. Elaine, and it includes salaries, wages. For example, here it's $490, almost $500,000, right? Jen, I honestly can't see, but yeah, all in front of the document, but what are you looking at? Elaine, I don't know what you mean by in front of the document. Jen, all right, like the way it's on my screen, I can't see you, but I think what you're pointing is behind. I'm sorry, I'm not great with this stuff. Elaine, okay, well, whatever the salaries and wages say, that's accurately reflected there, correct? Jen, I would hope so. Yes, ma'am. Elaine, okay. And there was also a statement at the end that said that was a little curious. And it said that there was a loan to a cash advance was made to a director during 2015, and it is intended to be paid back. A loan was made from a board member to AOE during 2015. Do you recall what those were? Jen, I believe one of them we're still dealing with. Something was put on the books before that had one side of a long balance sheet between what the charity owes to me and what it has paid me back from what I've put in. And then one, I believe, was for a film that we did that one of the board members floated and was going to get back whenever we did the distribution deal, Elaine. And do you know who the director and board members were? Jen. Well, I can't. One of them, as I said, was me. And then the other one, I believe, would have been Lauren O'Reilly. Elaine, all right, okay. How much time do you have left? How much have I used? They wanted to know. All right, I'm going to stop now and let Miss Vasquez ask questions. That leaves me time in response, so I'll come back and rebuttal. Thank you very much, Miss Howell. So Camille, I think this would be a good time to take a break, maybe a 10-minute break. Mr. Sphere said it sounded good. Everyone said it was good. So then when they came back, Camille, Miss Howell, Mr. Sphere, Miss Messenger, thank you very much today for appearing for your deposition. As you know, I represent Mr. Depp and California rules applied to this deposition, and Miss Bredehoff has graciously agreed to, off the record, to adjourn the deposition at this time, and she has 20 minutes left, I believe, to do rebuttal examination of you, Miss Howell, and I have 3.5 hours to do a direct examination of you and get your testimony. I have had a personal issue come up, so we are going to request an adjournment of the deposition at this stage and reschedule it for another day, another time, where you would come back in for 3 hours, nearly 4 hours of depositions, testimony both by me and Ms. Bredehoff for her 20 minutes. And we will coordinate with your attorneys for you to come back and finish the deposition, but we are very grateful for you today for sitting for your deposition for the first part of it. Jen said, thank you. Ben Chu, yeah, this is Ben Chu. Thank you so much, Miss Howell. We really appreciate it. Jen just said, thank you. Elaine said, thank you. Elaine, I just want to go on the record, just based on Miss Vasquez's reasoning and request in the personal matter, I absolutely agreed to do so and have agreed to adjourn. And then they were off the record. I'm just going to put the rest of it up for you guys so you can pause and read. As you can hear, my voice is tired. Tired. Fuck, Elaine went in on her, didn't she? Man alive. That's it. We're going to go on to volume 2, probably tomorrow. I'll probably do it tomorrow when my voice is rested. But I hope it gets better. I really do. Well, it must, because Camille's doing the next one. So it should be a little bit more gentler on all of our nervous systems. But that's it. Have a great day. Have a great night. Have a great whatever you are in the world. I love you. I appreciate you. Mwah. I'll see you guys next time for